time, right there. Cause if it flood, I'm gonna get 140 each
No,
time.
that's not the energy we need.
So I need to do 140 twice, plus my equity.
Let that go.
I can do arithmetic, but I ain't good at math. What's your Ramona Johnson? I was just checking. I was just checking.
Are we gonna need more tables set up? We can set up more tables. We can bring more tables in. Let's bring more tables in.
Right down.
Miss Ramona, move that way. Move that way. That's fine. Talking to the mic so I can hear you. Talk.
We're happy to be here this morning. So many people are talking. Okay. You know I don't do that well. Oh, sure.
I just looked at your full name.
Hey, I was about to tell you it's not. Is that what you're working on?
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started, and as people come in, they'll just join in.
Well, so I am relentlessly trying to get this water that is working in the creek, not going away. We haven't had rain, significant rains are now going on 3 months. That should have rained because the contractor was 10 years ago.
Good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Just so pleased with the turnout and for everyone coming out this morning on a Saturday morning. I know you could be doing so many other things. My name is Ramona Taylor Williams, and I am the Executive Director of Mississippi Communities United for Prosperity, MCUP. And we are a grassroots, community-driven organization that focuses on environmental justice, climate change, and social and economic justice in communities that have high levels of vulnerability. We started in the rural communities up in Duck Hill, Mississippi, where we were funded by the Southeastern Sustainability Directors Network, SSDN, at $300,000 to create a model for citizens-driven and community-driven sustainability that focused on equity and inclusion and fairness. And the town of Duck Hill, and I'm going to be very brief, the town of Duck Hill was a little town that sits between Winona and Grenada. And this town had been flooding profusely for many, many, many years, for decades. And the residents wanted to do something about the flooding in their community, about this problem. So we looked at how we could provide and present solutions to help them to mitigate the flooding problem so that the community could move forward with community and economic development and improving the quality of life of their neighbors and their neighborhoods. We were very successful. The town of Duck Hill does not flood anymore. I lost my husband on April the 15th of last year, and that was his last project that he did. So we are now, because I live in Jackson, and although our work was centered up in the rural communities, when the water crisis hit, that made things look a little different for me, because it impacted me directly with the water crisis. So I met Tracy, and I was introduced to Tracy and was sharing the work that we were doing, that we do up in the rural communities, up in the Duck Hill community, and everything. And she told me about the flooding in the McLeod community. Well, I just thought McLeod was just one neighborhood that we were looking at, right? And so we did have a meeting with the McLeod Neighborhood Association. I believe that was last year in October, and shared the work that we were doing and everything. But the problem began to persist, right? And we started to hear more voices in the community. Then we were blessed with an opportunity through a colleague. His name is Michael Burns, and he is in Atlanta, and he runs an organization that connects universities and college students with communities that are trying to solve problems. And Michael reached out to me and said, Ramona, I have an opportunity with Columbia University. Got some fantastic students. Do you think that, you could use them, that students could be a benefit, that this project could be a benefit? And I said, And then when he told me that the students were sustainability students, that immediately turned on a switch in my head, and I said, absolutely. And then I began to share with him about the flooding issues of the McLeod community. And when the students who came and visited it from Columbia and visited it visited it Jackson, we did a tour of the community, and many of the residents, several of the residents were involved in that tour, Brother Dion, the Pews, and other residents. And that's when we found out that it wasn't just one neighborhood association, that it was several neighborhood associations. And those neighborhood associations may not have been working collaboratively or talking together. So we wanted to see what we could do and what kind of solution we could bring in order to bring the neighborhoods and the communities together around a common cause and a common agenda. And that common cause is the planning. Might end up being other issues and other things that community wants to address, but the main priority is the flooding. So the students did not have time, because they were already into the semester, to do and start the sustainability planning process. But what we did have time to do was to look at how could we develop a communications plan that would serve as like a hub for all of the neighborhood associations, but those neighborhood associations still maintain their own autonomy and their own identity. On July the 27th, we had a community meeting. We were here. Many attended that meeting, and some may not have been at that particular meeting. But at that time is when the students introduced the Brookwood Community Communications Plan. Well, at that meeting, we also found out that the community was not called Brookwood. And Brookwood caused a lot of controversy and confusion. So we went back and we said, okay, we got to do away with Brookwood because community don't want to be branded by Brookwood. And that's when we just came up with the names of the three different communities, neighborhoods, with one common agenda. So that's kind of like the theme that we're hoping to get consensus from community, that's how we want to be branded, how you want to be branded in this initiative and everything like that. May change, but right now, I think that might work for us. So, at that meeting, our next steps was that we would meet frequently as community, right? Neighborhood associations will continue to have their monthly meetings, but as a united front, the neighborhoods and the residents in the community will come together on I think we had said, for the times what? Every other month. So that was July, this is September, so we're on track, and we keep our word. So today's agenda is going to give an update of the progress that we have made since we met on July 27th, and we have made some progress. And then I reached out to my dear friend, brother, who comes every time I call, never fails, Brother Omar Muhammad from Charleston, South Carolina. And Omar has worked with communities in Charleston, South Carolina. And you know, Charleston is right on the coast, so they have a lot of experience, and he has a lot of experience dealing with flooding issues, but he also has a lot of experience in environmental justice. He's a marine biologist by trade, by profession, and he also has his master's in public and urban planning and public administration. So a couple weeks ago, I called him, Juan and I called him and said, okay, we're having this meeting. I need you to come and inform community about this process around the One Lake Plan and where we could go from there. So without further ado, I just want to say welcome to the space, because it's just a blessing for us to come together as a community to begin to chart our vision for our communities, right? The scripture is real when it says that the people without vision perish. And we can see that through the flooding crisis that these three neighborhoods are experiencing, it can have very devastating impacts on our overall quality of life, and in fact, our mental health, right? So we like to open up our convenings and our meetings with acknowledging the indigenous people whose land that we stand on. And this land was originally the Choctaw community, so we want to give reverence to them, and also our ancestors who have paved the road for us to travel and for us to be in the spaces where we are today. So I'm going to ask Reverend Thompson if he will lead us in prayer.
Let us pray. Our Father God, we come at this hour and at this time. We humble ourselves before you, Father. We are looking for solutions, and Father, we pray that you would bless us and give us, Father, the resources more that you've given us already. Let us utilize them to the glory of you. Help us and hear these families that are represented here, Father, to know what's going on, Father. Help us to be sustainable, Father. Help us to live, Father, in a peaceful community. Help us to love one another. Help us, Father, to give all that we can to this community and to the surrounding communities, that we do it to the glory of you. Help us, Father. We know that you will, and we ask this in all blessings in the precious and the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, we are going to do a quick introduction so that we will all know who is in the space. Since you all are neighbors, you probably know one another, but we like to know everybody. So we're going to start, brothers, we're going to start here. And please let us know the association that you're affiliated with.
Good morning. My name is Darrell Pugh. This is my wife, LaShonda Pugh. We live off of Old Canton on Melrose Drive. And we're the Parkway Association.
Mike Johnson, 35-year veteran. I actually hate being here. It's the truth. We want the truth, right?
I'm right there with you.
Thank you.
It's a shame that we have to be here.
I'm right there with you.
Okay, buddy.
I'm James Miller, my wife Keisha Miller, we are in the Parkway Association.
I'm Yolanda Baggett, we're Parkway, this is Everett Ray, and, yeah, we're on, Valley Vista Parkway.
I am Mindy Bowers, and I'm in Colonial Estates. And got a lot to say.
Deon Thompson, North Canton Club, and like Mr. Mike said, I hate to be here, but we're here because of this cause, and we're just gonna do the best that we can and just go from there, and I hope all of you all in here leave today with something that you didn't have when you first came here, and I hope our neighborhood associations would get together, these presidents and whomever they are, and let us know what's really going on, because it seems like we're being swindled and bamboozled, and next thing we know, our property or this and that is gone and it's no longer here. So we have a community that we have to fight for.
Hi, I'm Sharon Page, Canton Club Community.
I'm Joyce Braskill Adams, Parkway Association.
Diana Nelson, this is my daughter, and I'm with Parkway Association as well. My husband couldn't be here today.
Omar Muhammad.
My name is Juan Fernandez, and it's an honor to be working with all of you. That's Albert.
Jerry Clark, North Clank Club.
My name, good morning, I'm Ava Hardison, and this is my husband, we on Melrose Drive.
Good morning, Frederick and Tamika Nolan, McLeod Neighborhood Association.
I'm Lily Smith on Cypress Trail.
Dominic DeLeo is appearing Jackson.
Greta Harris, McLeod Association.
Don Daniels, Cloud Association.
Miranda Salas, North Canton Club.
Nancy Lanter, McLeod.
Erica Cornelius, McLeod.
I'm Andrew Whitehurst. I live in Madison.
Tracy?
And why are you here?
I'm the Water Program Director for Healthy Gulf, which is an environmental organization. We've written comments against the One Lake project in 2007, 13, and following One Lake.
Thank you.
And at the registration table is Katie Coates, and we have our youth volunteers, Maddie and Parker Coates. We engage youth in every aspect of our work. 2 weeks ago, we held our fall youth organizing for climate action and racial equity convening, and it was absolutely amazing. And so youth are so critical and essential to the work that we do, because guess what? My knees and my feet are not working so well right now. And they're the ones that got out in the communities and handed out the flyers and everything like that. So we are training them up in the way that they should go. And the way that they should go is should be defenders of the environment and defenders of our community. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Dr. Horton. Dr. Horton is the professor that teaches the sustainability class with at Columbia University. And then we also, from there, will be introducing you to our cohorts of students. Remember when I shared that we had introduced the Comprehensive Community Communications Plan at our July 27th meeting. So we have made progress in the implementation of that plan, and we're partnering with Georgia State University, their Capstone and GCIS department in order to develop a website for the community. So Dr. Horton, are you there?
Give me one moment, Ms. Ramon.
One moment, Dr. Horton.
Okay, Dr. Horton, say something.
How's that? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
We hear you.
Okay.
Give them a thumbs up, Albert.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So yes, Mona, thank you so much for the chance to join today. And good morning to everyone there. Yeah, as I think Ramona said, my name is Bradley Horton. I'm a professor at Columbia Graduate School in New York, and thrilled to have the opportunity this semester and hopefully beyond to work with you all. Give a little bit of background. Last semester, so basically starting in January, a group of students, senior undergraduates, whom I teach, had the chance to come down through. We first interacted with an organization called C2P2, and through that organization, we learned about some of the issues that the communities face, especially some of the flooding concerns. So we had a 13-week semester, and about 8 students had the chance to come down. And thank you to all of you who met with some of those students when we came down in early March last year. One of the main takeaways, I think, was we got a sense from members of the community that it would be helpful to build a communications plan, which the students did, and I think which you may have attended and seen. And that was really just an effort to help ensure, as I believe Dion may have been saying, that 3 communities have to communicate and to share some of the suggestions that the young students, the students who are so strong in social media and kind of technology are encouraging for ways to sort of get the message out, to organize in the face of some of these challenges and kind of share information. So, of course, as we know, you all have been fighting and working for these issues: flooding, water quality, garbage, and you name it, a number of issues for years. And similarly, we at Columbia want to try to have a long-term relationship and not have it be just sort of swooping in for one semester. So this semester, we have a new group of students, 7 students, who are really excited basically to support your needs. And they're very eager to learn more about how they can help. Some of the things that we've been talking about, just to sort of quickly say, although really hear from you, are, for example, can we help with kind of a landscape scan to help kind of document which areas are flooding most? We help sustainability or resilience plan. Can we look at what other communities and cities have been done, how they've been effective, kind of pushing back to develop more walkable cities, to develop other ways to increase resilience in the face of some of this flooding. So those are the kind of things that we would love to do to support. But really, I think fundamentally we're here to. I don't know, Ramon, if that was sort of the right amount of background you were looking for. I know the students at any point, if it's okay, would love to kind of quickly introduce themselves.
Yes,
it's like 5 of the 7 students are able to be here today. So whenever appropriate, they could do quick introductions and say a little about what they're excited about.
Thank you, Dr. Horton. Yes, please do introduce the student.
I think I had him muted, so we get feedback. Let me do this.
Hello, good morning. My name is Andrew Pontius, and I'm a student here in the Sustainable Development Program at Columbia University. We're really looking forward to working with you and learning more about what your community needs, how we could be of service. My background's in dance and in politics, and I'm currently working in operations here at a research institute in Columbia. But I think that altogether we have a pretty diverse skill sets, and so we're
Hi everyone. I hope you all are having a good morning. My name is Genesis Vasquez. I'm also a senior here at Columbia studying sustainable development. I'm really excited to get to work with you and get to know a little bit more about your community. My background is in water quality and air quality research, and so I'm really excited to see, what we can do to really help you all.
Hey everyone, I'm Sam, originally from Toronto, Canada. Is also in flying research, and I'm really interested in like coastal management, things like that. And I'm just really excited to, do anything that we can community.
Hey everybody, my name is Marcella Petiprin. I'm from Flint, Michigan originally. So I have a background there working with the Flint Classroom Support Fund, an education foundation that gives grants to Flint teachers, and with the Flint River Watershed Coalition, doing some protesting activities. Since I've been at Columbia, my focus has really been in renewable energy and a little bit of urban greening. So I'm really excited to bring my skill sets and to learn more about the opportunities to work with you all.
I'm Claire. Oh, good. Yeah, we can see you, Claire.
Also, fourth year Sustainable Did. I'm really excited to be here. My work in the past has been around resilient urban development, specifically on this concept of walkable urban greening. So yeah, I hope we can be of some help.
Great, thank you to the students. I think Ramona and all with that, maybe turn it back.
Yes, sir.
We can listen in, whatever's best for you.
Okay.
Thank you for the chance to speak to everyone this morning.
Thank you for joining us, everyone. We surely appreciate it. Next, we are going to introduce our cohort of students from Georgia State University who will be working on developing the website, and also who will be, we actually have two groups of students from Georgia State. One group will be working with community to develop the website, do your branding, and the other group will be working on what's called asset mapping. And when Brother Omar gets into his presentation, he'll talk a little bit more about asset mapping and why it is so important to know the dynamics of our community. For instance, how many homeowners, how many owner-occupied homes do we have versus the number of renters that we have? If we do have rental properties, are those landlords good neighbors? So we'll go more into asset mapping. So Juan, do you want to introduce the students from VSU?
I can. Do one of these mics work? But I don't see them on here, and
They're not on?
no. Hey, no, I think everyone that just presented is from Columbia. They did get an invite, but I can briefly touch on. We do have the two cohorts. Sure. One of them is going to is a website development team. They're going to make a team to help implement the communication plan that was mentioned earlier. I think some of that just involves like a place where you can go to to see like what events are going on in town. Well, particularly in your 3 communities. A place where you can have like a photo gallery of events like this or anything else, and maybe a place for any other type of updates, which perhaps could come in handy if there is another sort of natural catastrophe like we had a few years ago. The second cohort is doing the asset mapping. They're identifying, like Ramona said, places where places of worship, places, schools, and landlords versus like renters versus homeowners, and just as a start for you to be able to step back and look at your neighborhood as a whole, and sometimes new patterns emerge when you look at things that way. So those are the two cohorts from Georgia. Unfortunately, this is a Saturday, they're students, and we made this optional, so I'm not too upset at them that they didn't show up. So, thank you, Ramona.
Okay, we're going to move on into the agenda. I think I'm supposed to talk about the common agenda and what's called the collaborative impact, which is the model that we follow for in the work that we do with impact. And what the collective impact basically does, and we'll go more into what that collective impact looks like in the model. There's some materials in your packet that you can study, and then when we get together the next time, we'll go more in depth into it and what it looks like, but it actually is designed to bring diverse stakeholders together to resolve and solve problems, okay? To put forth solutions, and to do that in a collective way, which is why we want to bring those 4 neighborhood associations or 3 communities together to form that collective impact. So there's 5 steps and 5 principles to the collective impact model. We've already started implementing one of them, which is this one. We're coming together. Hopefully we're going to agree on a common agenda. I think the first common agenda would probably be centered around the flooding issue and what we can do in order to make our communities more sustainable, more healthy, and more thriving. So I'm not going to go into a lot of it right now because I want to give Brother Omar as much time as he is going to need because his presentation is more around it's like a training. But Juan is going to give us an update on the One Lake plan, and we do have some developments that have happened around that I think are in our favor for right now.
Hey everyone, so I've had the opportunity to meet most of you, but my name is Juan Fernandez. I started this work actually with Healthy Gulf through Andrew. I did a lot of research on the One Lake, and yes, and worked to identify what I believe were issues with the project. So I'm going to try to cover a lot of information in about 10 minutes. Again, we want to make sure we get to Omar as soon as possible. If you have questions, I would appreciate if maybe you write them down, and I can try to answer them to you either in the discussion or afterwards. I'm going to be hanging around after the meeting. So this is a One Lake report. It's going to be a little summary, but I also want to make sure I give you some information that maybe can give you some context for whenever you're working with Omar, or just when you go back home and talk to people. Next slide, please. So what am I covering? I'm going to very quickly give a recap of the last presentation, the one from 2 months ago. Then I'm going to go into what are the solutions that are being considered. Either, they're referred to as alternatives for flooding by the Corps of Engineers. Who are the people making decisions? I'm then going to cover that, the decision makers. How will they make their decision? I'll very briefly touch on that too. And then I'll give a summary of how the next 6, 7, 8 months will go, a timeline of events. Next slide, please. So to recap, next slide, flood reduction benefits. If you were here at the last meeting, or if I've talked to you about this probably, what I covered in the last meeting, one of the big points is that the One Lake project, which many of you have heard of as this this plan that's been pushed locally for years. It does lower flooding, but the flooding is optimized, the flood reductions are optimized around Eastover and Lakeland Drive, which are higher income, predominantly white neighborhoods, whereas your neighborhoods, which are at higher risk of flooding, actually get the more marginal benefits. So for example, if you live out in that back end of Canton Club, where you had maybe 6 feet of water a few years ago, you would only, guess what, you would only have maybe 2 feet of water. So it's still flooding, right? So that was an issue that we found. That was what we talked about 2 months ago. And again, if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them after the meeting. Next slide, please. So let's actually go into some of the newer information that some of you might be curious about. What are the solutions that the Corps of Engineers are considering? If you went to their meeting back, I think in June, you would have seen they talked about, we'll call it 3 different options, but you know, you can slice it up several different ways. There's alternatives A and A1. These are the non-structural measures. There is alternative C. Alternative B has been canceled out, ruled out. There's alternative C, which is the one lake plus some other things. I'll talk about that in a second. And then there's a combination or hybrid plan, which kind of throws a whole wrench in things. But next slide. So let me just, again, summarize what these things are. All right, so alternative A is a non-structural measure. It's what they call a relocation, but what everyone knows is a buyout. The gist of it is they put people out of harm's way. It's actually considered a very effective way of protecting people because you move them. But there are some huge issues you can guess, like are they going to pay you fairly? And if half of your neighborhood's gone, what's that do to like the bonds that you may have with your neighbors, right? A community is changed whenever you buy out. Next slide, please. Then there's floodproofing. Some of you may recognize the map. The Corps of Engineers made this map. They just kind of show general ideas where floodproofing will be. So for most structures, actually, you and I, we talked to somebody at the Corps of Engineers. They told us they can take slab foundations and lift them. And that would be their plan. And so I've talked to some people about this, and the question is, well, like, you know, I had 6 feet of water, I had 7 feet of water. According to a manual from the Corps of Engineers, they can go up to 12 feet. You know, if you're questioning that, I do not know how they would lift slab foundation by 12 feet. But
you're still displaced because you can't get in by road.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it would be just to keep you safe from the damages.
Like Highway 61.
So,
All those stilts.
next slide, please. Now there is that issue, and there's also another issue in one of the guides that the Corps of Engineers has published. They note whenever they're lifting homes that slabs that are not reinforced, they actually have instability problems, and if they lift an unreinforced slab foundation, your foundation will crack. So I think that's very important to note because the Corps of Engineers releases their next report, and they say, hey, we're going to reduce damages for certain neighborhoods by lifting them. You need to figure out if you have a reinforced slab. Like, I mean, maybe they'll do it for you, but I think that it'll be good for you to know that that is a potential source of problem with this alternative. Next slide, please. Then there is the alternative that so much of Jackson has fallen in love with, alternative C, which is primarily the one lake. The one lake is the big part of alternative C. The lighting is, you know, it's a little hard to see, but what they're going to do is there's this big green section on the map, just to give you some context. Oh, thank you. Lakeland Drive is around here. This is Interstate 20. They would go and excavate a lot of area around the river. You may hear that as referred to as widening the river. You make more space so water flows through more quickly and doesn't get as high. And then they're going to take all that material they dig out, all that stuff, and they're actually going to put it on the wetlands around the river right here. They sometimes refer to that as reinforcing the levees. And if you ever see videos that are circulating about the one lake where they show you all these nice condos and waterside properties, The reason they're elevating that land is so that you can build that there. Now, alternative C is not just the one lake, there's some other things involved. This is the wastewater treatment plant, they're gonna update the levees there. That's part of the plan, but it's not part of the one lake. All right, they can do that without the lake. Same with starting some sort of wildlife habitat north of Lakeland. Part of alternative C, but not part of the actual lake. Next slide, please.
So, how does that wildlife area impact the communities that we're focusing on?
So how does the wildlife area affect you guys? So in the last presentation, another thing that I covered is that whenever Lakeland Drive started being developed, people in the 80s, like floodplain managers were saying, hey, that's gonna make things worse for North Jackson because the water has a hard time moving through Lakeland, that small bridge. So would you go back to a slide, to the previous slide? So it's actually nice that they are making it a wildlife reserve because it guarantees that that area won't be developed. And if that area is not developed, it's going to provide storage so that flooding doesn't get any worse, right? But it's not the whole place. There's still this marked, like there's still areas that can be developed. But I can't speak much to the wildlife thing because I've just been concerned with the lake primarily.
Is that near the museums? Is that where that's located?
No, it's if you know where like the YMCA is at Flowood,
Okay.
it's around there. Then I mentioned that there's this combination plan. How that looks like is I don't know, but I mentioned that like the one lake has different parts to it. They might take some parts of it. They may take parts of the non-structural measures. And who knows, maybe we'll even see other things that like are small details. But like I said, it really throws a wrench in it because I don't know what it's going to look like. I do think that this is going to be the final thing. It's going to be a hybrid of different options. But that's the Corps of Engineers has stated that it is by law they can do that. Next slide. So summary, alternatives A and A1, the non-structural. Alternative C, the one lake with some other things, and then a combination of the two. Now, next slide. So that's the what. Here's the who. Who's in charge? Who's going to make a decision? Next slide. Two agencies that are key decision makers. There's the federal government, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and then there's a local agency, the Rankin Heights Pearl River Flood and Drainage Control District. I missed the word control, but if you're writing this down, Drainage Control District. Now, a little bit more information on them. By law, the office that's going to give the final, well, not the final decision, but that's either going to approve or disapprove of the one lake is the Office of the Assistant Secretary of the Army of Civil Works. This is the actual office of the Secretary of the Army of Civil Works. I might refer to him as the ASA. If you were at the in-person meetings in June, you would have seen Robin. She is one of his deputies. She was here, and she was one of the panelists. Next slide, please. So this is the federal agency. Then there is a local decision makers. This is the district, and it's actually made up of local representatives. You will probably recognize at least two of them. Mayor Chokwe Lamamba and Robert Graham. Yes, Representative Robert Graham. It's also got the mayors of Flowood, Pearl, Richland, and a board of supervisors from Rankin County. There is a seventh seat that has been open for a long time. So there's actually 7 people on the board. The 7th seat is chosen by the state legislature, and it's been empty for years. Now, how do these two entities interact to actually make a decision? Let's go into that. But I think first, how will the Corps of Engineers judge between all the alternatives? Could you go to the next slide? Yep. How will the decision makers judge the alternatives? This is decided by law. So I told you that the Assistant Secretary of the Army is going to look at the alternatives and make a decision. It's not arbitrary. Congress has given this office specific instructions. So number one, that office has to determine what they called the National Economic Development Plan. It's formulaic, but just to like simplify it, you can think of it as like what plan gives you the best bang for your buck. If you put, $10 in, which plan's going to give you more than $10 back in some sort of benefit, which includes flood reductions. After they figure out what's the NED plan, they have to actually figure out which plan provides the most flood protection. All right, so I'm actually not 100% certain how they do that. I have heard that some places do by monetary value and some places do just by units of houses. I can't tell you because I don't know which one it is for this. The third thing that the office has to look at is which one is technically feasible and which one is environmentally acceptable. And I do quote unquote environmentally acceptable because that's what the law says, but I can't find a strict definition of what that means. It probably hinges on a lot of other things. All right, so this is the process that's going to be going on in the next few months. But here's some insights that I've gathered so far. In Slidell, whenever the Corps of Engineers held their meetings, the day before they held it in Jackson, Robin Colosimo, one of those deputy directors, she did say that this is probably the best bang for the buck, the non-structural thing. So not the one lake, but the first thing, the most bang for the buck plan is actually the non-structural measure. Also, based on a technical report from the Corps of Engineers, and that's one of those details that down in the weeds, but if you want to talk to me about it, you can afterwards. I believe that the one lake plan is going to provide lower flood protection compared to other alternatives. It spends a lot of time money building a dam that doesn't actually provide flood protection. So I think that 1 and 2 are already leaning towards this one. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Corps of Engineers says that they actually want to go with this plan.
Now, I understand that plan, the NED, under the NED, that's where the non-structural
is the buyout or the relocation.
Relocation / buyout and
So,
flood proof.
keep that in mind.
Could you go to the next one, please? But don't forget that there's also the combination. So, so it really could go in a lot of different directions. All right, so timeline, tentative. This is a slide from the Corps of Engineers. They said that by the start of September 1, they would actually have a environmental impact statement ready for us to see, what's the NED, what's the flood level protections. But we got an email on September 1 telling us that they were actually going to hold back because there were too many comments and they were still doing studies. They did mention that the one thing that they were focusing on were tributary problems, so creeks. And that's the thing for some people here, like I know that Purple Creek, for example, has been backing up in at least 2 of your neighborhoods.
I think they pushed it back for 60 days, not 30 days.
Yes, to October 31st.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So I just kind of imagine, all right, so if maybe everything gets moved back 2 months, so we might not get a decision until March of 2024. And I mean, that's assuming that nothing else gets pushed back further. So I was trying to come up with like, what is the actual chain of decisions that are going to be made, and how are the 2 decision makers going to come into play? So I need to verify this next slide. Next slide, please. But I think that this is a rough estimation and a good one. So red outline, that's what the Corps got to do. They got to publish their result. Public, us, everyone has time to comment after that. After that comment period, the Corps is going to publish the final environmental impact statement. First is the draft, then the final. And sometime after that, there's going to be a record of decision. There's going to be some sort of document where that office of the secretary, they say, they give the recommendation, this is what's gonna have to happen, and this is why. They'll reference this document. Now, after that, there's going to be a 30-day process to appeal. Anyone can appeal whatever the Corps of Engineers decides to do, and that includes the district. So those mayors I showed you, if they don't like the decision, they can actually go to litigation until the Corps of Engineers, they don't like what was proposed. But regardless of what that final decision is, the district still has to agree and disagree. Or just, agree on whatever gets built, because if the Corps says, no, you're not going to build a one lake, the Corps, the levy, the district, our mayors, they can say no, or they can say yes. So that's kind of the process outlined, and maybe that starts to give you an idea of who are the people who are going to be making decisions. Next slide, although I believe that is the final one. Again, if you have questions, which I know I covered a lot, these are just kind of extra things I have.
Can we
Yeah.
go back to the timeline?
Okay.
A good question.
Okay, thank you. The first blue box.
Ms. Ramon, take the mic.
Oh.
Yes.
The first blue box, the 45-day comment period is so important for us to be able to respond in a powerful and meaningful way. Because not only do they make the decisions, but their decisions are also driven by community and community input. If we don't respond, that says we accept, right? And I don't think we want to be in a position of acceptance on this, whatever the plan is, because regardless of what the plan, that plan should be, first and foremost, that plan should be acceptable to community. So far, the Army Corps of Engineers has not lived up to their own statements of being inclusive and equitable, right? Because if they did, they would not schedule a meeting 3 or 4 days before the meeting was scheduled to take place, right? That is not meaningful community engagement and community outreach, and we have to hold them to account. So that 45-day comment period, we have to be ready. We, right now, only have an anticipation of when they are going to drop the DEIS. The day they drop it is when the clock begins to roll. That's when that short window, 45 days. There are other national organizations like Audubon Society. They are involved in this. American Rivers, they're looking at it. Sierra Club is looking at it. So we're not in this by ourselves. And we have scientists and engineers and hydrologists and all of those folks that do this stuff professionally every day. We have them also looking at this one lake plan, analyzing it, and they are waiting, anxiously waiting for them to drop the DEIS, and that's where it grows and that's where it begins. So we're going to be able to put forth a strong 45-day comment. I also think that we should consider doing petitions and set a goal of 500, 600 signatures so that we will be able to submit those signatures with with our comments to when they drop the DS. So, turn it back over to you, Juan.
Brian, one other thing. Why is it that, prior to big rain, they know the rain is coming in, they don't lower the reservoir, the amount of water, so they can hold back more water? Bring the water level, not in flood stage, but up to the almost top of the river, coming down. This way, they can hold a lot more water. Now, right now, it's down. But why can't they, I know the people up there on the reservoir complain, they don't like it. But they need it lower so they can hold a lot more water.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems is that the reservoir was never built as a reservoir that is capable of providing flood control. We don't have, if you go up to like Grenada and you stand on those lakes, you'll see that there's a lot higher slopes. Those are higher hills. They got a lot more room where the reservoir can go up and down there. Here, they don't have that type of room, and there's also, I believe, limits because the city of Jackson's getting its water there. And I've been told, I don't know this for a fact, but I have been told that they actually can't, if it gets too low, that pump won't work. And so then Jackson will have a place to draw water. Now, it is also my understanding that they do release some water before storms. I don't know how much, but it's actually causing problems downstream because they release a bunch of it out at one time. And that has this effect where the quickly going up and going down of water in the river is deteriorating a lot of the property along the river, specifically like in those old like shipping towns, Monticello, Columbia. And so I don't know enough about the reservoir. I do know that it's technically limited to hold water. And I do know it releases some water beforehand, but I don't know all the details. I was going to say, so maybe one more question on that, but I don't want to take time away from Omar because it's important for us to, I think, start actually organizing our response. So, Timothy?
Yes, what is the probability of an eminent domain may be initiated in this situation?
God, I don't want to answer that because I don't know probability. And number two, that's, they always say it's going to be voluntary buyout.
Whenever they talk about buyouts, non-structural, though using that type of terminology, because this is considered a public benefit, am I correct, Omar? There's always the probability that eminent domain can be used. So I don't think people should discard it, although the Army Corps of Engineers, it was raised at their meeting, and they did say, no, they've not considered that. Well, they've not considered it for the moment. And they're not the only ones who are involved in this, and nor are they the ones who are actually pushing this one-lake plan. I think we need to know who the players are here, right? Who is behind this thing? And one of the NED, it's driven by economic development. So what they're actually doing is giving the go-ahead for a massive infrastructural economic development initiative. Well, I've been around for a few years, and I don't know if you all remember urban renewal, but I remember urban renewal, and I know what urban renewal looks like, and I've studied it for the last 30, 40 years. This is just another face of urban renewal, but this time they're not using highways and concrete, they're using water, and we better get ready for it. Those who own their homes, and that's why we need to identify who the homeowners are in our community. Many of the folks in our community may be right at retirement age, have paid for their mortgage, like my parents did. 6 months later, after they paid for their mortgage, here comes urban renewal. And they found themselves in their 50s. Instead of preparing for retirement, they had to go and get another 30-year mortgage. So we need to keep these things in mind, and we need to understand there is nothing new under the heavens. If they did it 40 years ago, they're going to do it again.
So it's a big difference. It's a totally big difference.
It is a big difference.
So, what the point that you mentioned is, River Road subdivision's never been built. It's never been built. It ain't no urban renewal. The land no good. And see what the Army Corps engineers told them not to build it. It's documentation. And the Ottoman at the time, they voted for the developer to build it. The land no good. You can't really do nothing with it. It was supposed to be a conservation park that was back there, and they pulled that because of the money that it would cost. So it's not a matter of race or anything. It just literally with it NLFP is causing too much money. So every time it floods, your flood insurance is covered by FEMA. FEMA's spending too much money and the rates is going up until they impressive now. Like, to live back there for your value of house, what you pay on your flood insurance. Yeah, your flood insurance is more than your mortgage.
If they will still insure it.
Right. They're still insured you could cover by FEMA. It gonna be expensive. And the more it flood, the more it go up. That's the problem. Like, anybody can have it because the insurance gonna be ridiculous. That's one of the biggest things about it. If where we at on River Road subdivision, that neighborhood shouldn't completely be there. It just shouldn't been there.
So they shouldn't have built it in the first place.
They shouldn't build it in the first place. And it ain't nothing you can do to fix the problem. You literally just too close to Pearl River.
Didn't you do that one time in one of your presentations? Didn't
You
you
just
show
extremely too close to
where
Pearl
it was
River.
wetlands and
Yeah,
should have never
yeah,
been
that
built?
part, I did show that, but I also wanted to emphasize what I think is important whenever we talk about what should or should not be built.
In that same presentation, yes, I showed that a lot of Canton Club is built in a place that already flooded. In 1961, that whole area was flooded. A problem though that's not covered in what you said is Lakeland should also not be there. That place also flooded. And no one is saying that Lakeland should be evacuated. Everyone is in agreement that Lakeland should be reduced. I showed that the flood reduction benefits are optimized for Lakeland. And so I think that is a problem. If they're going to get some sort of differential treatment, is that the right word? I don't know. If they're going to get good treatment, why can't the other neighborhoods get good treatment? So I do think that there is these dynamics of something's not right in that they seem to be getting a pass. It floods there. It flooded in 79, it flooded in 61. Now they did build most of that stuff after 79, so they filled it up, which actually has just made flooding worse here. But that's not, I do agree that maybe buyouts should be a consideration. I'm not against that. I do want to say that if you say that, hey, look, it shouldn't be there, neither should a lot of things.
Right. So I'm not speaking as for against the buyout. I'm just speaking as in,
Yes, I did.
Right. So it's not even that. It's just speaking on strictly like what's the problem, because if they gonna spend $300 million on non-structured plan, then you still paying flood insurance. It didn't make no sense for them to spend $300 million.
That is right.
Because so that's the thing. Like, what's the feasibility of this actually working? What's the feasibility of our we coming out FEMA flood now? Now, if that don't happen, then what I say is we should move forward by that. Because if they gonna spend $302 million and you still paying $7 a month in flood insurance, that make absolutely no sense.
You're 100% right. Yes.
Yeah.
And just to be clear on what he's saying, because I didn't say it in mine, is that if they choose the non-structural alternative, they lift your house out of the floodplain so it doesn't flood. Yes, you'll still have to leave. You're in a flood, and you'll still have to pay flood insurance, which is what you're saying. It's not the same if they build levees. I'm not saying levees are the best solution for everything, but I do believe levees actually get you moved out of a flood zone.
Right.
And Warren, this is, Sean and I had talked about this, and it's so true, and I'm glad he said it, because it's just this and a whole lot of other factors that's involved in this, and we need to know all the factors that are here. And like Ms. Ramona said, urban renewal and
everything else that's affecting us, because this is our community. Either we're going to live here or we're going to move, one of those two things. But every time we look at that map and we see that big body of water, that blue body of water, we know that's the reservoir. Now, I'm here to tell you that reservoir is the key thing, because when that water comes from the Yakanuki, which is up in Lee County, Big Black and all of that, it has to come down the top Pearl River into the reservoir, and it's already full. Okay, but here's the thing about it. For the convenience for somebody to have a boat docked outside of their house, and so they can walk out and just get on their boat and enjoy the luxury and the leisure of doing this and doing that on a reservoir that's full, and then all of a sudden here comes the rain. Because between now and the first of this year, we don't know how long it's going to be before it floods again. 2022, and here it is again. So, but for the benefit of them to walk out and get on their boats and go out on the lake and enjoy themselves, and then releasing this water because the reservoir shouldn't get to a certain capacity, then it floods Jackson and it floods further on downstream. Now, the person that was from Gulf South, true enough, he has his interest in there, and I remember the mayor from Monticello, when she got on there, she was talking about the One Lake project and how she was against it, and Roger Wicker, our senator, stood right there at that bridge and told us that this is a doable project, Mr. Thompson, and what we're going to do, we're going to give you all the resources to get this matter resolved, the flooding that is. Control that reservoir, and you'll control the flooding. I mean, we've got to do something, and we've got to look at all these different factors that are on the table, and we've got to do what's going to be comprehensive for all of us.
Why can't they make the reservoir deeper? Why can't they dredge it so that more water would be in there?
That's all, you're talking about a $2 billion project. Right. Yeah, you're talking about $2 billion dredge. I mean, you got to understand the reservoir was there for recreation and water, and a water source. They created for recreation and water source, and it was a benefit of Ridgeland and Jackson. Jackson had a water source, and Ridgeland, Madison, and Randy had recreation. So at the time they built it, it was a benefit for both of them. It just now is no longer a benefit for Jackson. We can't go back and something that we agreed to, like the earlier situation. Army Corps said don't do it. Jackson did it in a way. That was a one-part agreement, but on that situation, Jackson and Ridgeland and Madison, they all agreed to it.
Well, I guess my question is, the reservoir over time, silt has built up on the bottom. It's gotten shallower and shallower. And so my point is, if they were to dredge some of that out, it could hold more water.
It's still deep. You're talking about 300 feet of water.
It's not deep. I've been out there in a boat. I know how deep it is.
Well, you're still talking about 300 feet of water.
We're gonna move on.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, maybe just even an
Okay.
area of it. Like,
Right.
you know, you're talking about building a lake down at the other end. Well, if you made certain areas of this bigger or deeper.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely should be surveyed. I mean, I agree, it don't have to.
And excuse me, but we better come up with a real plan real soon.
Okay, yes,
That's
sir.
what I.
Because they're already building a road from the back of my house on Foxborough to the river. There's only 1 mile on the road, 4-wheelers through there all the time. 1 mile from my house to the Pearl River.
Is that the,
And they already built a road
is
from
that,
Foxborough, the back of our house, because we got creeks.
is that Power Line Road right there? Where the
It's,
power lines
no,
are?
yes, it is.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And
They
so-
not building a road, they just, they clearing it.
That's the excuse that they always use.
No,
You're flooding.
And I don't want no wires over my house.
that's not
Like
even,
that.
that's not the city or the state doing, that's the
Yeah.
utility.
You're flooding because of a blockage right there. You go to Power Line
Right.
Road to Purple Creek.
Every time they.
There's a blockage right there that the city created.
I'm just saying, we need to come up with some kind of realistic plan.
I can show it.
So let's move,
I have my plan right here.
let's move for,
My plan.
let's move towards that plan, right?
Sorry.
So we're going to, what's our time looking like? Are we on time?
10:45.
Okay, 10:45. So we are going to move, do we want to stretch? Do we want to take a 5-minute break, or do we want to keep it moving? Keep it moving. Okay, Brother Omar, I am turning it over to you.
Good afternoon. I'm going to give a little bit of background on myself as well as the organization. I appreciate the opportunity for the invitation today to talk about some of the work that we are doing in Charleston, South Carolina that we believe can be replicated here. I am the Executive Director for the Low Country Alliance for Model Communities in Charleston, South Carolina. I am also a city planner with the City of Charleston. And we have used this process twice to mitigate impacts in our community. It's the National Environmental Policy Act, which this project falls up under, which dictates how the environmental impact statement process is done. The NEPA process is one of the, at least from my opinion, is one of the most powerful environmental laws that we have. But it is definitely one of the least known and least used and not well understood, even by the federal agencies that's supposed to understand how NEPA works. I can tell you from experience, these folks who are asking for these federal permits, they're looking for every way that they can not to follow NEPA. And you have to be able to hold their feet to the NEPA process, because that is what is going to be the saving grace for your community. What is helping this community here is because they need, and I have not dug deep into the environmental impact statement that was done in 2018 yet, but I believe they are asking for a 401 permit because they're asking to fill a wetland. That's usually why if it's navigable waters or anything like that, that's what will kick in the Corps engineers to oversee this project. So because they are proposing to fill in wetlands, they are, I believe they will be asking for a 401 permit to do that. Because they are doing that, there are mitigation components that community can ask for that can drive many of what you all are talking about. How do you protect your communities from further flooding? How do you reduce your risk to flooding? And buyouts may be the solution for some of the area, not all of the area, but some of the area. You don't know that yet until you do a full analysis of all of the potential solutions that you can bring to the table. It just can't be buyouts, but you have to look at green infrastructure. You have to look at gray infrastructure. You have to look at a host of different types of solutions that potentially can be brought to the table. And that's part of the job of the community, is to hold the Corps engineers' feet to the fire to make sure that they do a robust analysis. One of the analysis they need to do here is the environmental justice analysis. A robust analysis of environmental justice. And we're going to talk about environmental justice. But first, I want to, the next slide. I want to talk about I think the next slide is the NEPA problem, where's the definition of environmental justice. So one of the best, each federal agency, let me say this, each federal agency has a definition of environmental justice that they must follow, It's in the kind of a point here is that environmental justice is not a law, right? Back in the Clinton administration, he did an executive order. And as many of you know, an executive order could be changed by any incoming administration, right? Or weakened, or whatever the case may be. And I can tell you that the Trump administration tried to eliminate environmental justice.
Yep.
They tried to eliminate this provision. Because environmental justice required that they look at the impacts on vulnerable communities, disproportionate impact in communities, and a lot of times what environmental justice does is slow down the permitting process for projects. And the key thing for developers is to get their projects through the permitting process as quickly as they can. Because the longer it takes for them to get through the permitting process, the more the project is going to cost. So their job is to get through this process as quickly as they can so that they can maximize their profits. Our job as communities is to gunk up that process, to slow it down, to make this process as long as we can make it. That will bring the developers to the table. It works. So the best definition that we have found is the definition from the Environmental Protection Agency, their environmental justice statement, which and I'm not going to, you can read this, but I'm just going to summarize it. Environmental justice basically is the fair application of all laws, rules, processes, regulatory, budget, right, funding, to any group, regardless of their income, their race, their ethnicity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It also defines the ability for communities to engage in a meaningful way in the process. And how environmental justice organizations and groups define meaningful engagement is that communities are involved in the process from the very beginning. Don't develop a project and come to us with a plan and say, we got a plan. Right? That's not meaningful engagement. Meaningful engagement means that you help to co-create that plan, that you help to implement that plan, that you help to evaluate that plan all the way through to the end. That's what meaningful community engagement is. And I can tell you that some federal agencies do not embrace this. And the Corps of Engineers is the worst. They are the worst. Although they have some of the most impactful projects when it comes to a federal regulatory agency, they tend to be the less educated about the NEPA process. And they will disregard doing a complete environmental impact statement. What you want to do is get them to do that environmental impact statement. They will rather go to an environmental assessment and then quickly go to a finding of no significant impact.
Yeah.
Of funds, right? Where they can just move the project on through. But you want to push the environmental impact statement. So this is the process here for NEPA, where you have a proposed agency. In this case, it's the Corps of Engineers. Federal agency will always oversee the project, right? The applicant, in this case, you called it the district, right?
Yes, sir.
The district is the applicant, right? So they will go to the federal agency and put in the application, and that federal agency will oversee the process, right? And I don't know if this has been done yet, they should publish this project in the Federal Registry.
Right.
I don't know if they have done that yet. That can be a ground for challenge, right? All these projects by law, they have to go through the federal registry so that it is properly proper notice is given that this project is moving through this process. So keep that in mind. I don't know if that is
They published an NOI.
They did publish it. Okay, so they did do the federal registry. How many of you have signed up for the federal registry? You need to sign up for the federal registry.
2 days. How are you?
That's how you're going to get notified of these projects.
Can we tell a little how that's done?
Yeah, you just go to the federal. You just Google federal registry, and you just put in your email address, and you will get notices. And you can specify. I believe it gives you an option to specify your area, right? So that you receive all of the announcements for your area. And you need to be on that so that you're aware of changes to the project, what other projects may be in the pipeline that is coming down that may be impacting your community. This is how you get informed. The other thing I would highly suggest, and I know that this is probably a heavy lift, right? You need to ask that community representation is on that district board.
Yes.
Right? That's something that you need to make known to your legislature, that you are going to be highly impacted by this project, and that there needs to be community voice at the table. That is a representative of the community on that district board. That's an action that you all can take in the next 30 days. Right. The next step would be, they will go through all the process of doing the evaluation of the projects, the alternatives, all the things that go into it. Ramona mentioned the 45-day comment period. I can tell you that is not going to be enough time for the community to review, do a robust analysis. I can tell you that right off the bat. So the first thing you do is when they release this draft environmental impact statement, you write a letter to the Corps of Engineers project manager, and you ask for an extension. Always ask for an extension of the comment period. That would give you probably another 30 days, right? You may not get it, but you always ask. Right? Sometimes they will. You make justification on why you're asking for the comment period to be extended. One of the justification is this is a very technical document that the community needs to analyze, have its own consultants to come in and analyze you. I mean, you use these words, although you may not have consultants, right? You use these words that you, believe me, these kind of words scare these folks, and they believe that you have folks that's coming in to help you understand this project. So you use those words. The community is doing their analysis of this project, and you need the extra time for your consultants to review. When you submit your comments, you need to be on one page about your comments, right? There's 3 communities, right? There's not a 4th. I heard a 4th community. Heard someone say.
Well, they're combined, Parkway and Columbia Heights.
Hampton Avenue, I think. It's like it's 4 neighborhood associations, I believe.
4 neighborhood associations, but really 3.
But 3 communities?
That's what I think of it. That's something that still needs to be discussed.
Okay, so we need to have an understanding of how the community defines itself. That's going to be important when you are framing your comments. I can tell you now, just by the practice of what happens, this draft environmental impact statement is a very technical document. It is not something that you're going to be able to pour over in a week. This is a document that could be potentially 600 plus pages. And it's very technical in nature. And because of the nature of this project, it is going to be very technical, heavy, very. So that means that you all are going to have to bring alliances to the table. So those environmental groups, right, that have the capacity to do this type of analysis, flood analysis, all these other types of impact analysis, they need to be at the table, and you need to have an ask of them, right? Just don't bring them to the table and just have discussions. Bring them to the table for a specific purpose. You need them to do what type of analysis you need them to do.
And we're all working on that.
Okay.
You're bringing folks to the table.
Okay, because that is something that you're going to have to, in your comment, you're going to have to push back on the analysis that would be part of the draft EIS. You're going to have to push back on what because who's doing the project is the development. Here's the development group, right? This who's pushing the one lane?
There's some huge conflicts of interest between the developers that stand to benefit in terms of like the increased land value I was telling you about, where the
Eastover.
yes. Also, those same groups would benefit the most from where the flood reduction is the greatest. And there's also close ties between those groups and the people actually, the private contractors doing the 2018 DEIS.
I understand.
So this is definitely a principalities and high places issue that we are facing.
I get it.
We've got to have the courage to stand up to them and say, back off, back off.
Well, you can use this process to get some solutions to flooding.
Yes.
That is going to continue to occur. Because as I was looking at the map, I do see some vulnerabilities. And as climate change is real. And these storms are not going to get weaker. They are intensifying, and they are getting more frequent. So we're going to have increased rain bombs, right? Sustained rainy events. that is gonna overwhelm very aging infrastructures. So we're gonna have to have strategies in which to deal with that, even internal in your communities. And then we need to be thinking about green infrastructure strategies and what that looks like for the community. How do you define, right, I put down here, how does the community define non-structural? Just because the Corps of Engineers is putting out what they believe non-structural is, how do you define it? And you put forward your own definition of what non-structural means to you, right? So that means that there will have to be a level of education and understanding what non-structural means. It just doesn't mean elevation of homes, but non-structural could mean a green infrastructure on your personal property. Right? How do you store water on your property where it slowly releases back, right, and not overwhelm a system that's already overwhelmed? Right? How do you do that in an effective way? In a cost that is not cost prohibitive, right? Those are things that need to be discussed. We can go to the next slide. So as we go through this process today, I already went over what NEPA was. So when the NEPA dropped, immediately ask for the comment period to be extended. And you could ask, anywhere between 30 and 45 days. I would ask for an extra 45 days, right? Just for the analysis that is going to be needed. I think Ramona kind of touched on this with the collective impact model. This is a similar model, the collaborative problem-solving model, where you look at what you are doing today, identification of your concerns, community capacity. We're going to be looking at where the capacity is of the community today, right? And what can the community do, and where do you need to fill in gaps, right? We're going to do that. Consensus building, like Ramona said, when you leave here today, everyone should be pretty much on the same page about what are next steps and how you're going to move forward to begin to put your comments together for the draft EIS, right? You have a pretty good window. It's to your benefit that they push this thing back, 60 days, 90 days?
To October 31st.
To October 31st. So that gives you some time to get your thoughts together about what does mitigation look like for your community, right? The question should always be, what if they decide to move forward with this project anyway? Even after you submit your comments, everyone opposes this project, that doesn't mean that the project is not going to move forward, right? The project definitely can move forward. And I can tell you in many instances they do. But when it does, or if it does, how is the community going to mitigate those impacts? Right? And there are ways. NEPA allows you to mitigate impacts. In our community, we used NEPA twice. We were actually the first nonprofit organization, a community-based organization to use NEPA. NEPA has been around since 1975. And we were the very first organization to use NEPA for community-based mitigation. And we collectively, was awarded $8 million total from two projects that impact our communities. We use those monies today to build housing, affordable housing in our community, scholarships, economic development, addressing environmental concerns in communities, right? We do our own research. So this money funded research for us to better understand the environmental impacts in our community so that we can come up with the strategies and advocate for policies, right? So that's what we do today. And we use this process here to do that. Next slide. So one of the things that we were able to successfully do is that we could not do this alone. It takes partners. So in partnership with the Department of Health and Environmental Control in South Carolina, our organization, the College of Charleston, the University of South Carolina, Clemson, University applied for a grant to EPA. And we received a grant to pilot a program, help communities to develop and design their own resiliency plan. I heard someone mention resiliency plan. But how do communities design their own resiliency plan? Not depending on agencies to come in, or your government to come in, your local government to come in and say what resiliency means to you. But you define what resiliency means and you begin to push those solutions forward. We call the program EJ Strong. And this is a set of modules where we walk communities and we look at, where we do hazard assessment, which I think the case today will be flooding. We do vulnerability assessment, and we do capacity assessment. And from those assessments, we put together an action plan, right, based off those assessments. And then that action plan can be used to put together your comments to the draft EIS. And that will be the process we're going to follow today. This is not going to be one of the most robust engagement of this process, because EJ Strong is a training that can last over several weeks, depending on the community. But we're going to do a rapid one, right? And just to get enough information to get the ball rolling here. Okay. Next slide.
And then we're going to have some continuation.
Yes, I believe you are asking for us to come back and do more robust training.
That's what the community so desires.
Yes, if that is something that the community wants. With EJ Strong, right, we have flipped or challenged the conventional way that disasters is looked at, right? We have come up with a formula that most disaster managers, even your probably your county, city emergency manager probably would not agree with. We found resistance with this formula. But how we see disaster as hazard times vulnerability over capacity. And basically what this formula is, in simple terms, what it means, is that when you increase the capacity of the community, you lower their vulnerability to hazard, which then prevents a disaster. A disaster is man-made. Katrina was a disaster because the government failed to respond to a hazard. Right? I think everyone can agree to that. Oh, thank you. So our formula looks at disasters, right, as man-made. It is not natural. It is not, God causes disaster. Man causes disaster. So when we increase the capacity of the community, we lower their vulnerability. Next slide. I don't know how to advance the slide.
I'll try. Okay. I don't know if I can, but I'll try.
So I hope today that we can get into some mapping exercises, because that will help me to better understand your community. And part of this is to help us to map out disasters too. Anytime you put a planner in the room, we always want to map and draw those kind of things. So I got trace paper, we have a map, and I want to see, hopefully, where there are vulnerabilities in your community. And I think Juan and I can get together at some later time, and we can make more robust maps.
Yeah.
So okay, cool.
I got a tool that you might like, but
What's that?
Google Earth.
Yeah, we use Google Earth all the time.
I got it on here if you want to try and map it on that.
That may be helpful for us to be able to understand some of the context. But let's get through the rest of the slides, and then we'll pull up Google Map, or Google Earth, and look at some of the communities. The hazard tool that we'll be using today, right? Because this is a large group, I'm not gonna bring, I was not anticipating this many folks, to be honest with you. Usually when we do, workshops like this, we don't get this many people, to come out, so we can break people out in smaller groups, but this is a pretty big group, so we're gonna do this together, okay? So we will do an identification, prioritization, right? There's gonna be so much that people, ideas that people have, concerns that people have, but what we'll do is we will list them, and then we will prioritize, right? Because that, again, it goes back to your capacity. Do you have the capacity to address some of these things? And where your capacity lies is where we're gonna make prioritization of some things that needs to be addressed, right? And then we will do some characterization, particularly of some of the hazards. How frequent it happens, when it happens. Because remember now, this whole process, this ideal around disaster, is not about your race or your income or anything like that. It's about time and space. When you have a hurricane, right, or a tornado, the tornado does not care if you're black, white, whatever, or if you have a high income or low income. It is in your immediate area, and it's about time and space, right? So we have to look at this process about time and space. So as we move through this, the vulnerability assessment, the capacity assessment, the hazard assessment, keep in mind time and space. That is what is important here in these assessments. Not that you're black, not that you are low wealth. Those things do not play a role in disasters. Right? So we have to change our frame of thinking around this. It's time and space. Okay, next slide, please. The hazard assessment, you all have a packet here. And we're going to go through, well, I think we have already kind of identified what the hazard is, right? Flooding is the hazard. I think everyone can agree to that, right? Let me ask this. When it floods in your community, do you have industry, brownfield, Superfund site? Do you know what a Superfund site is, brownfield sites are? Okay. So brownfields are sites that potentially could be contaminated, right? It may not be contaminated, but it's perceived to be contaminated. A brownfield could be a junkyard, a salvage yard, even laundromats, right? An abandoned laundromat or a vacant laundromat. Anything where chemicals could have been stored, those are brownfields. When you have flooding that happens in an area and you are adjacent to a brownfield, when that area floods, that water is carrying those heavy metals, those contaminants in your community. That's why it's important to have, to really look at the broad area and really say, is there brownfields in this area? So with that definition, do you have brownfields in your area, in your community?
We had E. coli 12 in our water, so you couldn't even walk in. So that's a whole thing.
So
360.
That's a water quality.
Mm-hmm. You couldn't walk in it.
Is that in the, what was the creek name? Pearl River?
1 mile from the Pearl River.
Purple Creek is another one?
Yes, sir. If you look right here, it's this is like Purple Creek.
Oh, that is
That's
Purple
right
Creek.
here. And,
That's
pretty much
Pearl
into the
River.
Pearl River, yes.
It doesn't get there though right now.
It does not get, Purple Creek does not.
A bunch of contractors left riprap and created functionally a dam that's backing it up.
When they built it, we flooded a lot quicker.
Yeah, I understand. So is there any conversations about opening that up?
For 10 years, I've been trying to get the city to do it.
And they will not?
They just keep telling me it's not an easy job, but they created it.
Right.
And I have been doing, if you name an organization, I've talked to them.
So what type of material is in there?
The riprap, what it was a water sewer project. And they ran a water and a sewer pipe across the creek. I have aerial pictures of when the pipes were laid on the ground before they were even installed. And the creek water was equalized and the water flowed out to the Pearl River.
And all those trees, talking about trees and stuff that came
But
down.
we gotta get so when they got done with this project, they dumped a whole bunch of riprap on top of the pipe that lays on the bottom of the creek.
Can we see that from Google Earth?
And the water cannot get past it, and all the riprap that they put on the sides has now created a second dam. So I have pictures.
I actually thought it was gonna improve.
Well, anytime,
What did they tell
It
you?
made it worse.
anytime you stop the flow of where water wants to go, naturally goes, it's gonna cause problems.
And the engineer can direct wherever we wanna go.
Well, they keep saying that riprap was put there to protect the pipe. Well, if that's the case, then they should have put culverts under the pipe so the water could have flowed and it didn't interrupt.
So why was it necessary for them to run the piping that way?
I don't know. I don't know, but the city is fighting me every inch of the way because they don't wanna do the work.
Where they cause the problem.
Right.
Yep.
But
I
right
thought they
now,
were actually making it better.
actually, every single day I fight with phone calls trying to find the person that's gonna help me. And Friday, I talked to the regulatory department with the Corps of Engineers and a guy named Brian Williamson. And he told me that they had to get a permit to do this job. And when the job is completed, it needs to be left in the functionality that it began in. And I have pictures that prove that's not the case. So now a case has to be opened with the regulatory department. Then they have to, it's 10,
I understand.
I have
I understand.
emails from 10 years ago.
But what did they tell you last week that they was gonna do this week?
Nothing. They told me that, thank you for my patience, which has been 10 years. And we won't leave, 10 years ago, they told me, we will not leave this situation unattended.
So, do you have a copy of the permit application?
No, the Corps, I don't know where to get that. If you told me where to get it.
It's the city of Jackson. What
It's
was the municipality?
I can tell you, actually, Engineering Services planned the job in 2012. And I'm trying to, utility contractors did the job.
Is this where you're talking about?
That's it.
That's it right there?
That's it.
That's it.
How did you pull that up?
We got a drone out there right now. No, yeah, it's Google Earth.
Google Earth.
Okay, so what you're looking at is on the left side of that picture. I live downstream a quarter of a mile, so that water is backed up there.
Oh, man, that
And
is
it's
terrible.
actually, this picture is older, and now it's actually worse because there is another dam on the right side, approximately wherever that block was, that it's created another dam as well. So you have what's in front of the pipes, and now you have a big, huge one in the back of the pipes.
Okay. So that may be something that needs to be, is this area in the project footprint?
Yes.
Okay, so this might be something that needs to be analyzed.
Can you can't show a picture from my phone on there, can you?
I can if you email it to me, or my email is mcupmedia.
It's what?
mcupmedia.
And cup?
mcupmedia @gmail.com.
Okay, so while she is doing that, are there any other concerns in your community?
This storm drains back up. When there's a hard rain, it backs up at my house, into my house.
I just met him, he lives in the neighborhood in McLeod as well. But when I drive out around me after the rain, there's water sitting in the driveways and then cul-de-sacs.
It just sits there? How long after a rain does it take for it to recede?
2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Where is that on? Rodney? There's another place right by precinct 4 on the corner there. On Parkway, that the water backed up.
That's because the creek that takes everything on out, back down to the ball fields, it's flooded and the water just stays right there.
Which is this creek.
I understand. So outside of your creeks, I mean, your creeks should function as holding some of that water and pushing it towards.
It should constantly be empty though, because it should flow all the way out to the turtle.
It should, it should. What does the stormwater infrastructure look like in your community? Do you have culverts? Do you have culverts? Do you have water manholes? You have manholes?
Most of them are clogged.
Most of them, they are.
We have holes in the road where the sewer lines busted.
You have holes in the road
Where the
sewer line has.
Yeah, our sewage system is about to be taken over by a third party. I think there's a whole lot of backstory there, but the city's no longer.
The same one that has the water has the sewer now.
The debris in the storm drains was exacerbates the problem, sir. And homeowners and lawn care people blow their blowings in the sewer lines, it exacerbates the problem.
Okay,
If
so
homeowners could understand that, and other people, it would stop some of it.
This one just happened the other day.
So you your maintenance. So you say
This just happened yesterday. Not
what is this?
Oh,
Oh yeah, blockage, that's good.
oh. In other words, that's and there's nothing there protecting it, it's just a hole.
And did they say what caused that?
They ain't been out there yet.
Where is this?
I got a question. Excuse me. When you say plan, are you referring to three community organizations coming like one?
When I say a plan, you don't necessarily you don't necessarily have to become one, right? But you need, for this particular project, you need one vision. About how you're gonna move you're gonna move together. Because I can tell you that if you don't come together around this project, that they're gonna pick you off.
It's right by here.
The developers are gonna pick you off. They're gonna come to each of your community differently and they're gonna pick you off. So you have to be one for this project. You may never work again together on anything else. But this right here seems to be the project that you're gonna have to have some consensus around. Right? Because this is
The area association need to make themselves recognizable so that they can have it.
This is what is downstream where the water should go to. But it's not even getting that far, and all through this whole creek is trees that once it passes this point is gonna be, I mean, but I'm backed up, I'm 4 feet deep right now.
Yeah.
Behind my house, because of that blockage.
But go back and you see that pipe that's coming out there with all those trees, because that last big flood, I mean, it brought trees from I-55 all the way back down through the Kroger bridge and just logged them up there, and they still in there.
Well, I can tell you from aerial views how long the biggest tree, now that's a pipe.
No, I'm talking about the stuff that's behind it.
Okay, this is a picture from Westbrook Road at the bridge down where the water should flow under Westbrook Road, down, go past the basketball place.
That's just a portion of it right there.
Well, this is the right side, yeah, you're right. Oh,
You think that they can get involved with that?
but this is the dam that's been created, and there's also a dam on the left side.
and the water that's on this side is not going anywhere because of that right there, it just stays right there.
Yes, and then right past it, because the water's coming so slowly, and the grade is not where it drained, it's just formed another big pool. And the creek has widened because the bank is stayed so saturated that the bank is just falling in.
Is it rolling away? Yeah.
And
I have to ask a question. How will our internal problems that we're discussing now play into the bigger problem that we want to present
Yeah,
at a
so
later
we're
time?
gonna get to the capacity
Oh,
assessment and it get to.
I'm trying to figure out,
Yep,
okay.
yep, we get
It's
there.
good. Okay.
We get there. Okay, so I understand that there is and I don't know if it's regulated, but there's some type of damming that was done, improperly done, that has caused make sure I get it right here, the Purple Creek to not to flow efficiently to
The Pearl
River.
Correct.
So I have asked Juan, if the Pearl River Keepers,
I've already communicated with Abby.
okay, to get involved and let's map.
She's walked to that point and saw it with me, and she just gave me a bunch of, here's an email, you can communicate with these people, which I have.
Okay, so I think maybe, okay.
NDEQ.
We can see, and then, there was an organization called here, Healthy Golf. Maybe, yes, sir.
That's me, with Healthy Golf. I was gonna say that the Rankin Hines Pearl River Flood and Drainage Control District is the drainage levee board in this area. And this, this probably falls
You have
under
a
their
phone number?
jurisdiction. At Flowood City Hall,
That's someplace I haven't called.
that's where their office is.
And
Now, so,
Rankin Hines, their drainage district.
so one of the things that we may need to do is have a better understanding of this area. And one of the things that I would like to get a better understanding, and maybe Juan, you can help me with this, is to look at the overall watershed that includes the Pearl River.
I can tell you though that, just something to be easy here, almost all of Jackson, with the exception of the westernmost point, is within the Pearl River Basin.
It is, okay.
Yeah. And in Rankin County, most of that is too. But it's like if you go, you can kind of see Interstate 220. Like you have to go a little bit to the left of that, and then you're in the Big Black Basin or one of those.
Okay.
But,
okay.
Yeah. But what I pulled up is a map of the 1979 flood.
Okay.
Which is, we've been talking about creek flooding, which I think is probably more persistent, constant, but there have been these like catastrophic floods. This is this is the footprint of the 79 in the metro area, based on like a USGS map.
So you can point to it and all that good stuff.
When was the last time y'all had a major flood here?
17.
79.
I was 10 years old. We had that.
But we also flooded in
2020.
There was a major one in 20 and then the one in 22. And then in between that, just like now, remember back in April of this year when we had all that rain? How many of you all actually went up to the reservoir to check the Pearl River? We was at Threat 3 times. Nobody
So let me ask you.
Yeah, last August, the lower areas, last August was a threat.
No, I don't want to
See,
be
when
bad
this
inside. I wanted to look at it
happens,
coming.
everyone in these areas has to move their
Okay, so you
furniture.
were displaced.
They're displaced.
You were displaced.
And
Okay.
even if it's a threat and it doesn't get into your house, you're still displaced.
I understand. Okay, how often does that happen?
Well, more often now since this water's been in this creek for 10 years.
So when you are experiencing flooding, does it always result in displacement?
Mandatorily.
Yeah, they turn off the electricity.
You have to leave.
How frequent does that happen?
It depends on the rains, and it depends on how empty the creek were. Yeah.
They release water from the reservoir.
Yes. So that adds to whatever water we already have in the remnants.
Was the releasing of the water from the
Releasing of the water from the reservoir, because it's a massive amount.
Massive.
that
Well, they
they're
did tell us
flooding
they were gonna take their time and release it.
And that takes away our banks too, because
If y'all have pictures that you'd like to share, please send them to
Yes.
MCUP Media Gmail, mcupmedia@gmail.com. And that way we can collect all these photos and it'll help us tell your story.
How many times during the year do you experience flooding?
Every time it rain hard,
I mean, give me a number.
every time it rain hard, I mean, it's hard to say, but these pictures I'm giving him, these were took in April.
Media.
Just
Just MCUP Media, one
Every
word,
time
at gmail.com. Let me type that up.
So would you say 10 times a year?
no, well, no. I mean,
How
the
many
major
times?
floods, like when it happens, well, lately it's been happening almost every year, once a year.
Once a year. Once a year, you have a major flood.
No, it's been happening in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Prior to that, it was irregular. And I'm saying that we all in this area that are flooding, we all run off of this creek where the water is backed up, and that's how long that water has been there, and not moving to the point where I got West Nile in my backyard
Okay.
from this stagnant water.
Okay.
Hurricane season, January the first is our bad time of the year for big rains.
To January 1st, you say?
If a hurricane comes up in the Gulf from September to January the first, we get it.
No, because we got it February 14th.
Well, it goes on into the spring.
We got it February 14th in 2020. We got it in August
I'm gonna send you all these.
of
Thank you, sir.
2021. We got it in April of 79.
Okay, so that I can get through everything, let's move to the next one. I'm still gonna capture as much as we can, right? But,
Everybody get their email address?
email your additional comments to this email address so that we can continuously collect your comments. And pictures.
Would it be a good source that, I mean, when it rains, we get these texts from media saying, hey, your area is flooding, will that give you a legitimate number of how often it happens? Because I get that all the time.
Yeah, so
Okay.
the other thing that I'm gonna ask you all to do, right, this is gonna be an action from today, and I was gonna mention this later, but I might as well mention it now. Photo voice. We have used that strategy successfully in South Carolina to advocate for a resiliency plan for a community that was experiencing flooding, and they could get no attention from the city of Charleston. And we had them to document, because the city of Charleston was believing that this community did not flood, right? Because they sat 12 feet above the median.
Base flood elevation.
Right, the flood elevation. So they believed that they did not flood, but they had flooding internal to their community because they had a sign wall that was placed along the community. They had a recent road paving that happened that increased the frequency of flooding in their community. So we asked them to participate in a photo voice project where everybody has a cell phone. Okay, you can take pictures, and we asked them every time it flooded, right? Even if you saw a pool of water in front of your home, just a pool, that's flooding. Everybody thinks about flooding as a running stream of water, standing water. Any amount of standing water is flooding. So if you have any flooding that is occurring in your community, take a picture of it.
How about rising creeks?
Anything, take a picture of it. We need to document these occurrences, how frequent it happens, what seasons,
I was going to add one comment on it. You can also geotag your photos with the lat long.
Yep.
So we can map them. And when you map it, it also adds power to your story.
That is
So
correct.
you need to add what?
You can
Do
have.
you want the longitude and latitude of that, what you brought up? I have it.
I found it thanks to your directions, but if you have a photo and you have a cell phone, you can geotag your photos. When you take the photo, you can say exactly where this is.
Can you explain what geotag is for us know this in the house or not?
It gives you the lat and long,
Yes, ma'am.
latitude and longitude of
And
the
how do we
location.
do that on our phone?
It's a setting in your phone, settings, and you can turn on the geotag. That's it.
Okay, everybody got that? We go to settings in our phone, and we turn.
You turn on your geotag.
Geotag.
Tag.
Oh,
T-A-G.
geotag, geotag.
And that, what that does is gives you your latitude and your longitude of where the photo is taken.
It's on your picture, your camera, what you use to take your pictures. And you can turn on in the gallery, right? The gallery portion. When you take that picture, you can go into the details of the picture and you can turn on the geotag, right? That will give you the location of where the flooding is occurring, so that can be mapped. In addition to what we asked you to do, is that it also dates it. It also provides a date on when this picture was taken. We also ask people, when you take a picture, just tell a brief story. What was the weather? Was it a sunny day? Was it a rain occurrence that happened over a 2-day period? We need to know all of that, right? Because that would be helpful in telling the story. So that's the other part of Photo Voice. There is a story that goes along with the pictures. That helps. And you can include those Photo Voice pictures and the stories in your comments to the Corps engineers. We did that with the Rosemont community in South Carolina, in Charleston. And we had them do the Photo Voice project. There, a little area, it was a green space that flooded all the time. Nobody believed that it flooded. It flooded. And wading birds was wading in the water, right? That's how deep the water was. Wading bird.
I got an alligator behind my house.
You need to take pictures of it?
I got it.
Okay.
I got it.
And what we did was we compiled that, sent it in to the mayor of the city of Charleston. He could not believe it because they all was thinking that this area did not flood. He came out the next day to look at the area, and he told his resiliency officer to reach out to the community. And the resiliency officer reached out to the community, and that's how they was able to get the city to commit $100,000 to a resiliency plan for the community. Our organization was able to write a grant. We brought an additional $600,000 to the table. So now we have $700,000 that we're working with the community on a resiliency plan that is going to look at green infrastructure, all other types of things. What we plan to do with this money, right? Everybody always bring their consultants to the table except for the community. This money is going to be used for the community to hire their own consultants.
Can you keep the politicians out of that money?
Yes, it is something that community controls. The community controls that money, and they're going to hire their own hydrologist, landscape architect, etc., engineer to look at flooding in that community and come up with a set of recommendations. And then the city is going to adopt those set of recommendations in city plans that we have. And this is the first time, right? This is the first year, the first time that Rosemont has ever been a part of the city of Charleston's plan. City plan.
Wow, that's awesome.
And that was done all because the community came together, documented what was happening in their community, and then advocated. And it didn't happen overnight. It took them 2 years. But they remained consistent. And they kept, putting their information out there. They designed a story map around the flooding in their community.
Yeah.
So that's why we're asking for these pictures, because then you can have a story map that you can map where these things are occurring in your community. Right? Okay.
Okay, so Everybody that's come today is signed in, and we got your emails, correct? Okay, I'll make sure to email everybody these instructions that have been pulled up, but this is what you do if you wanted to. I'll make sure to email everybody the instructions that have been pulled up, but this is what you do to do your geotagging. That is on the screen. And the email, mcupmedia@gmail.com for right now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, you go to the next screen. Remember we talked about space and place that makes you vulnerable. This is exactly what we're talking about. It does not matter how much money you have. It does not matter your race or anything like that. If you're at the bottom of a hill where the rock is rolling, you're vulnerable to the rolling rock. Regardless of how much money you have, you're vulnerable to that rolling rock coming down that hill. So that's how we look at vulnerability. And what we're working on today is being able, I think we got a good idea about the hazard that is happening in your community, the flooding that is happening in your community. This vulnerability assessment we can do later, because some of that will involve us being able to look at how many of your homes are in the path of potential flooding. How many of those homes, and how deep does that flooding go into your community? That would be some mapping that Juan and I will later on do. We will be pulling information from your census. That I cannot tell you how important it is for everyone in your community to participate in the census. I'm going to say it again. It is important for everyone in your community to participate in the census. Because this is how we determine how many houses are in your community. Who pays rent? Who pays a mortgage? Census tells us that. Unless you're going to be on the ground in every community doing surveys. But that's a labor-intensive process. So most groups and most organizations use the census. And we know that because of the Trump administration, the recent census is questioned.
Yeah.
Right? The census that was just done is questioned. Because the Trump administration did not want to do a complete, they rolled it out late, they rolled it out incompetent. Right? So we know that there are some gaping holes in the current census. So we will supplement some of that with the American community survey. Right? This comes out every 5 years.
And Omar, brother, you know Bill Cooper? Okay, Bill is a demographer, and he has disaggregated in the ACS, the 2015-2019 data.
Okay.
And we have that for the Hines County and also for the city of Jackson.
Okay.
The only thing is it's not down to the census tract.
Okay.
And so hopefully we'll be able to bring it down to the census tract where we can clone in on these, zoom in on these communities and maybe census block even.
If you have time, you may even want to do a community level survey.
We're working on that. That's one of the things we're going to be doing with the Columbia.
Okay, good. Because that will get you more accurate data, is to do that community, get in the community and actually do that survey.
Now, because of IRB restrictions, they'll be able to help us to formulate the questions, but we'll have to actually have organizers going into the community, collecting the data.
So you're working with an academia on this, I'll say. Get that academia to whoever you have.
Is Dr. Horton still on?
No, ma'am.
Conducting that survey, get them to have the IRB training, right?
Okay.
For those folks that will be doing the training. There's a certification.
Oh.
And your academic group can pay for the certification.
Well, see, this is the thing. The reason why we're trying to kind of circumvent the IRB process is because it just takes forever to go through.
Well, that's the
some of
academic.
those.
MCUP can have its own.
Okay, okay.
It's just an internal
Okay,
review
so we can have our own
process.
internal.
You can have your own
IRB
internal
process.
review process.
That's what we want to do.
On how you're gonna, do these projects in an ethical way.
Yes.
That's basically
yes,
what
that's what
the
it
IRB process
Yes,
is.
yes.
Because of the Tuskegee
Yeah.
experiment, right, that happened with academia research.
Yeah.
What was instituted from federal governments and academia is the IRB, the Internal Review Board process. It is an arduous a process to get through with your projects, but sometimes it's necessary, particularly if you are dealing with collecting personal data.
And if you're dealing with youth, because we have to go through the IRB process for our Youth Leadership Institute,
Yep,
the survey.
yep. You can come up with your own internal review board
That would be
process.
wonderful.
That MCUP does.
Okay. We'll talk more about it.
Yeah, we have one.
Okay, all right. we'll talk more
That
about
we
it.
do. Okay, so your vulnerability assessment, we're gonna pull that from you all's census. And we're gonna look at all the census data. We already know that there's gonna be some gaps, but we will try to deal with those challenges as we come across it. What we will be looking for is how many essential businesses are in your community that is potentially would be impacted by flooding. Right, those essential businesses in your community. We will be looking at infrastructure like water, wastewater, water infrastructure, electrical infrastructure. How would that be impacted by flooding? We will be looking at how many homes in your community will be impacted. The age of those structures, right? We will be looking at the income level. Now, we're not looking at a specific income level. We're looking for income ranges, right? For that is in your community. How many people of color? How many people of other ethnicities? We'll be looking at all of that. This is important information to gather because it tells the full story of your community. How many hospitals, schools, all those kind of sensitive kind of infrastructures we will be looking at. In your packet, we also included a list of resources. If you want to do this analysis on your own, this is a list of resources that you can begin to do that. One of the tools that EPA has is EJ Screen. And you can put in your address of your home and a whole list of different environmental challenges that are in your area will pull up for you to be able to do a little bit of deeper dive in. So we have provided several links to different types of resources. When I asked the question about Superfund, brownfield, toxic release inventory sites, we have some lists there because when we always ask this question to communities do not have a good understanding about what is in their neighborhood. When it comes to toxic release inventory sites, who's storing what in your community? Do you know that is toxic release inventory sites? Are there trains that run through your community, and do you know what are in those containers? That comes under the Right to Know Act.
That's right.
Right? So we provided all these lists too, because it's important to understand that. Because I think Ohio made it, that incident that happened in Ohio with the derailment of the train. Right? There was communities adjacent to it, and because they were affluent communities, they thought they were not vulnerable. Again, right? Hazards are about space and time. Has nothing to do with your income, has nothing to do with your race. It is when an incident happened and you are in that space and that time. And Ohio taught us that lesson. Right? So you have to understand where the vulnerabilities are in your communities, where could be the potential problems. And if it is a flooding, and remember doing, I think it was in Texas, they had a hurricane, it flooded. And remember the chemical plant where the flooding happened? And the storage tanks that contained the chemical, when it got exposed to water, it would explode. They did not inform the fire department, right? Which when they came to respond to the fire, they were exposed to all kind of chemicals, right? So these things are in your community. When these incidents happen, around flooding, it cascades to other types of hazards that could be a concern in your community. So we need to understand that holistically in your community, so that we can that the community can respond appropriately, right? If you have those incidents, should you shelter in place? Should you evacuate? All of this need to be considered. Yep, there it is, right there. Okay, now we're going to talk about. Can we go to the next slide?
You have no more
Capacity. This is our last assessment of the day, and then we're going to probably close out with some discussion with the community about what you all want to see next happen, and potentially what strategies can be put in place. We already named one, Photo Voice, right, where you document what's happening in your community in a systematic way, right? Everybody with pictures on your phone, that's not helping if everybody else doesn't know that this is happening in your community. So you have to have one kind of repository, right? A central hub where these pictures are shared. I think you all talked about a website being developed, that these pictures can be shared, so that everybody has a complete picture about what's happening in your community. These are not isolated events. Capacity. When we think about capacity, right, this is a key component to when you talk about lowering your vulnerability. Capacity, you have to think about the people. You know, when I talk about capacity, people think immediately about what grants are out there, right? Money. That plays an important role too. But more importantly is the people. Who can you bring to the table with certain skill sets, certain understanding that can help you navigate this process and be able to advocate what is in the best interest of your communities, right? What does capacity also means? What does consensus look like? Consensus does not mean that everybody in this room is going to agree. And we will be fooled to think that everybody in this room is going to agree. You're not. But what consensus is that everybody agrees that the majority of the folks say that this is the path that we're going to take, and although we don't agree with it, we can support it. And we can fuss and fight and have a throwout in this room. But when we leave the door, we speak in one voice, although we may disagree. Because I can tell you, when you go before these regulatory agencies, and they see any divide, they're going to take advantage of it. We have to act like the developers. Developers bring people to the table that they cannot stand. But because they want this development to move forward, they bring a certain person with a skill set or have access to something that they need to the table to get that project done. Once that project done, see you later. We have, as communities, we have to think the same way. So we have to, when we leave here today, right, we have to have consensus about what is next steps, how we're going to move forward, what capacity the community has. We have to be honest about what we don't, right? So this capacity that we're going to talk about right now is basically, you know, we have a more robust process, but it's going to be a rapid process today. And one of the quickest way to get to this is a SWOT analysis, right? And a SWOT analysis is looking at your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. That's basically what a SWOT analysis is. And that will help us understand the capacity of the community. So I'm just gonna ask, what are your strengths? When you think about strengths, what is the strength of the community? Yep, unity, right?
Numbers.
Numbers.
Resources.
Resources. Can you name some of those resources. Well, you got some of the groups here, right? You got Healthy Gulf. You have Pearl River Keepers. You have the community associations. Are there any other groups that you can name? You got MCUP. Are there any other groups? What other organizations you can bring to the table?
The neighborhood association.
The neighborhood associations? Do you all have a Sierra Club?
Yes.
I've been trying to contact them, they don't have a working number, but I did email the director, and I talked with the national chapter, and he said if he doesn't respond to me in 2 days, to get back with them, if they would personally contact them. So Monday, I will be contacting the national chapter of the Sierra Club, and let them know that he has not reached back out to me, the director of the Jackson.
Okay.
So I'm working
Sierra
on that.
Club.
Yes.
So you want to put the Sierra Club down as a potential part. What about your
Audubon Society.
Audubon
They
Society?
already contacted us.
Audubon Society. What about NAACP? Y'all have a chapter here, right?
Yeah. Zombie Lambright is.
And they have an environmental justice component to the NAACP. Although all of us may not be on the same page with NAACP, right? But we're looking at who can bring attention.
100 black men.
100 black men. You want to bring attention to your concerns. And although you may not agree with the politics, throw that stuff out the door. Because what you're trying to do is save your community. So you need to bring everything to the table.
And Omar, one thing, I don't mean to play no devil's advocate or nothing, but put all the cards on the table. Now with these 3 neighborhoods, there are neighborhood association presidents. Where are they? Nowhere to be found. Now, I know our particular one, I just recently found out who she was, met with her a while back, right? But before the flooding came, like in 20, they were nowhere to be found. But now all of a sudden they want to come out of the woodworks, and then in our neighborhood, there are other issues that my neighbors have been having with our neighborhood association president, and between, like from last week up until now, passing out these flyers and talking to people, and even new people that have just moved into our neighborhood, it has been, I mean, nothing but just bad news all along the way. But now, where is our neighborhood association presidents? They want us to join a neighborhood association and pay some dues, you know, monthly dues, but, you know, where are they in terms of this? And Ms. Ramona shouldn't have to be on no website, because they should be able to, from the start, if they're the president.
So I'm going to be just quite frank with you. The politics within communities can slow the process down.
Yep.
I'm gonna just be honest with you. You don't need the community association to be on board. This could be this group.
It is. That's what it is.
You are representatives of your community. You know, you do not necessarily have to have your community association on board. As long as this group sees the commonality, the common ground in which to move forward, then this is the group of action. One of the things that Juan and Ramona and I had conversations around, I think some of you that was on the call, we talked about the creation of a community advisory board. Some of you potentially could serve on that board. That will be the ones that will review the draft environmental impact statement. Will be the ones that we continue to further train on how to do these community assessments, right? Because it is not advantageous to the community if you have to always have groups like LAMSI come in and do this work. Our job is to help the community build their capacity internally, so that the next event that happens, you have the tools that are necessary for you to be able to do that work, right?
And this is basically what happened, because with the first group that came in from Columbia, they gave us a platform, they gave us voice in the things that they did when they came into the neighborhood. These people took out of their time to come here, and they gave us insight. And the reason I'm saying that is because where was all these other people? And I mean, and some of the people, especially in my neighborhood in Canton Club, didn't even know what was going on. The only thing we know, we was flooding. And the only thing we know, we needed some representation. And even Ed Graham, the supervisor here that's on that board with the Rankin County people, sitting up doing nothing, but yet and still, we're being flooded. Back in 20, he was in Vegas spending our money. And one of his constituents and colleagues, Mr. Archie, was out here vouching for him. I'm going like, where is he? Even Senator Wicker, even our new state legislator, Miss Yates, Chandra Yates, in case y'all don't know who she is. She told me, she said, if y'all have any issues or any problems, you know where I am. I said, yes, ma'am, we do. We got your email, we got your address. But the thing of it is, what are you all going to do to help us resolve this issue? And it needs to be done.
But a lot of times, communities have to take it upon themselves. We cannot wait on government to do that, right? We can't wait on government. We can't wait on government to protect us and defend us from climate change, because climate change is already upon us. We have to come together and take it upon ourselves. As they say, we got to save ourselves. We have to save ourselves. And then that's why it's so important that we all register to vote. If they ain't doing what we need them to do, then you know what?
That's right.
Yeah.
And Ms. Ramona, and that's exactly why like I was telling you, that's why I wanted to help you and I wanted to help Warren, because first and foremost, in Canton Club over there, I wanted to make sure all the way back to River Run that our neighbors knew what was going on, and because some of them were not able to get out because of this, that, or the other. And then even like one that lives next door to me, he's an MS patient, and we make sure he knows everything that's going on. And some of my other neighbors, I was encouraging them, come to these meetings so you'll know for yourself. Secondhand information may not get you all the things that you need. Come out and know for yourself.
But know this, that this type of word starts with a few.
With a few.
Yeah.
It always starts with a few. And I was always told this when I first started this work, is that you're going to get a few people to respond. Yeah. But when you start having success, everybody is going to run. Because everybody runs to a banner of success. Yeah. So you're going to have people that's going to wait in the cut, and they're going to wait and see. And these are just the folks. But you cannot not move forward because you don't get the participation level that you want or you anticipate. You have to move forward with the folks that you have.
So should we get a name for this new group that's formed?
I don't think it's necessary.
We do need
Me?
point of contact. A site that somebody can go to actually be able to find out what's going on. We did find out on a fluke the first time that somebody running around the neighborhood saying they're having a meeting.
Right, I hear you. I hear you. I hear you.
This was a
So,
young kid.
I mean, I think there is some. What are you all calling this?
I think that we got
three
different-
communities,
three
one
different
common
clubs.
agenda.
Now, one is more important than the other.
That's right.
That's
So
right.
this group right here is important because everybody here, we can always spread the news.
Exactly.
But I would like to have, this is just me making a motion. I don't care what you call it, as long as it's a group. And then we can always do our separate things in our own associations. But I need a point of contact. I need something to go to.
If community is in agreement, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Juan is going to be your point of contact, right?
I like to be
Juan is smart.
I like to be, one doesn't live here. One is good people, but he does not live here.
Okay, so you want that point of contact to be someone in the community?
One of the leaders, is
So-
any one of the leaders here.
Okay, so that's something that community is going to have to.
Once you do it, brother, you vote.
Yeah, since you brought it up.
You don't want no 35-year veteran being no leader.
That's all.
Yeah, you do.
Community
Now, see, there you
organization.
go.
Yeah, you do.
No, 'cause I'm too direct.
Yeah, you do.
I was a drill sergeant for 11 years.
Yeah, you
don't
do.
want that.
Tracy.
No, you don't.
Yeah, you do.
I need a point of contact, a website or something where people can go to, where they can locate us.
Okay.
Instead of having a kid running around talking about they having a meeting.
So I think that's what they talked about doing. Is developing a website
Something.
for this project. I think that immediately, right, Juan, a Facebook page, can be created until the website is up and running?
The communication plan. Right.
Okay, the communication plan. Has everybody been given a copy of the communication?
We will make sure everyone gets a copy of the communications plan because we have everyone's email, is that correct?
Okay.
On the sign-in sheet?
So you all can expect an email from MCUP with the communication plan that is outlining how this project is going to be communicated moving forward. You're talking about developing a website, that's good. I think immediately a Facebook page, right, can be developed so that communication moving forward from today on can continue until the website is up and running so that people have a point of contact. Yes, ma'am.
Right now, we use Nextdoor.
You use Nextdoor?
Yes.
Okay.
But
So the
Nextdoor
sister...
is very, Nextdoor is very broad.
It won't stay in my pocket. The sister is saying Nextdoor.
It's not really a user-friendly.
It's not a user-friendly?
Not to me. Maybe to her it is, but
Okay.
not to me.
So let me ask this.
So, Brother Omar, so
Got
can we
everybody's
start
email
with
address?
the communications plan that we will get out to everyone? And then the next step will be, this is just recommendation, the next step will be is that we set up a Facebook page for 3 communities, 1 common agenda for right now until community can come together and decide what they want to, how they want to be branded and label themselves. And then we start at our next meeting, start having some discussions around the communications plan and how that will be implemented. Because remember, we have cohorts of students that are going to be working with us on the developing that vulnerability assessment may come out of that. So we have those, we're building capacity, community capacity. What we need is worker bees. We need to have working groups who are going to be working on various things, working on communications, working on making sure everyone has signed up for the Federal Register, so when those notices come out, we'll be able to get it. And then the website, what we'll be doing is that when that FR hits, then we'll put that out on the Facebook page until we get the website up, and everybody will know that this has come out. We'll post it and everything like that. Okay. So working groups, right? Working groups are nothing but committees. And everybody that's a part of any type of organization, the work goes on in the committees. The work goes on in the working group. I think it is very critical that community forms the community advisory board, form that CAD, because the CAD can have representation from each of the neighborhood associations on the CAD. So you ask, who is the point of contact, right? Tracy Miller knows the community very well. Tracy works with us. She's kind of been the point of contact, helping us to meet people in the community and first one thing and the other. So Tracy worked the job. She's got children and everything like that. So who wants to volunteer to be the point of contact from community that we can work with?
Who's that point of contact? The brother right here.
No, I'm not racing. I'm not racing my hand. Can I have?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, but this is my first time coming to the meeting. So I had a neighbor to tell me about it, and I got that flyer. But I'm here to find out more information about what is the purpose of what we're doing. Is it the one lake? Are we for the one lake? Are we against the one lake? Are we looking to sell our homes? Are we looking to what? That's why I'm here. I'm willing to be a part of whatever. I'm not a resident of Jackson. Well, I'm not from Jackson, but I live in Jackson.
Right.
So I've been here for a number of years, so I consider myself, part of the city now.
I
But
think that's
I just
to be
wanna know,
determined.
are we for?
Valid
Okay.
question.
Yeah.
Valid
I just want more information, that's all.
And I think that's going to be, I think that's to be determined.
Of course, the number one priority right now is the DEIS. Expected to be, the Army Corps of Engineers that's expected to drop on October 31st, right? It may drop, it may not drop. When they get word that community is organizing and first one thing and another, they may say, well, we need more time to do this. We don't know what they're going to do, but what we know what we do know is that they're going to do something, and we have to be ready. We can't wait until it happens. So as soon as that DEIS, as soon as it drops, then we've got to be able to move in a moment's notice, right? So we've got to be having some discussion. When you ask the question, are we here to determine if you're going to sell your homes or not? We don't know, right? I think that's going to all just kind of bubble up and evolve as this process moves forward. But the number one priority is community coming together on one accord. That's number one priority. Number two, being ready to respond within that blue box, that 45-day comment period, because that's what's going to determine where this thing is going to go. That's what's going to determine if your property is going to be secured. And then not only that, there are other opportunities windows of opportunity that can open in order to help to start getting some immediate relief from the flood.
So Ramona, can I ask this question to the group? What do you all want to see?
What do you want to see?
I want to be aware of what the hell is going on.
That's right.
Exactly.
I was blindsided. They've been doing this for 13 years. I mean, when it comes to fighting, I can fight. If I know who the hell I'm fighting.
Thank you.
These individuals have been doing this for 13 years, and it got dissolved 3 times, I believe. Ain't that right, Juan?
Previous versions of the One Lake have, when it was the 2 lakes,
Yes.
it got rejected, yes.
What happens if they don't get rejected? It's gonna be just like Madison, where a man just lost 340 commercial acres to this same project.
What
If
if
you wanna
it
build-
does get does get
Yeah, but
rejected,
think
then
about
where
it.
do we go from there?
Madison is part of it, Pearl is part of it.
Right.
Both of them have already initiated what they're doing. We're in the middle. Gotta fight the right fight.
How far are we?
Be aware of what's going on.
45 days, when did the
The
clock start?
45-day clock starts on the day that they release.
I understand that, how far are we behind?
It hasn't started.
It hasn't started.
We don't know yet.
We don't know yet. It hasn't
It has
started.
not started.
Is that
Won't start
information
till
public that
November
we can
1st,
learn?
maybe.
Where they on that continuing line, so we know when the 45 days?
Yes, I believe this recent draft EIS is an update to the 2018.
Yeah.
2018 is the benchmark of when it started.
Oh, where they have a draft EIS.
And we don't know when that's gonna happen.
They
Keep in
have
mind
one,
they're
right, that was
sneaking it.
released in 2018?
Yes.
Yes,
This
the
one's
draft
gonna
one
be-
from 2018.
But I think to get at least what this project is, you could begin to review the 2018 draft EIS, just to get an idea of what is going on with this project. And then the draft EIS that's going to be released in October is a supplement to that one. It's going to be, I mean, you're going to have to break this thing up in pieces. It's going to have to be a group effort, unless you have somebody that this is what they love to do, and they will sit there and read this document because they love to do it, right? Outside of that, you're going to have to spend your evenings reviewing this project and with maps, like what is there. You have the maps on the wall. You're reviewing this document. Anticipate them burying things in different sections of the report. Anticipate recommendations they make not making sense. Because you're gonna read something and say, this doesn't make sense. So just anticipate all of that. But while you're building up to October 31st release date, you, right, the community at some point needs to know what their ask is. What do you want? Do you want to support the project? I think that there's some idea. If you want to support this One Lake project, if you do not want to support this One Lake project, or if you just want more information.
I want the ball to be in my court.
But what do you mean by that?
That means I want to know what the hell's going on. Before, recently, we didn't even know this was going on. It's been going on for 13 years. I want to know what's happening.
I know.
So I can put the ball in my court. If I need to sell, see what I'm saying? I'm prepared. But if I can stay where I'm at, I'd rather be there.
I understand.
I want the ball in my court.
Okay, so how do you place the ball in your court?
Right in the head of the game.
That is correct.
That's why you're here.
Well, it's a
Talk to me
it's
now.
a portion of why I was asked to be here, right? One of the things that I think that needs to be done is that the community needs to sign up. Do they have a project? I think they have a project website. They have a project website for this
Yes,
project?
it's, I always have to Google just Corps of Engineers, USACE, USACE, Pearl River, FRM, and I find it through Google that way.
Yeah. So sign up for their newsletter. Sign up for the project newsletter.
Oh, I don't know if there is that.
They
just
don't have a project newsletter?
I don't think,
No.
no, it's just like a website.
I haven't seen a project
Pearl
newsletter, and I
River,
signed up.
FRM, or whatever you just
Yeah,
said.
do you mind if I
It's
look
a
it up?
study.
It is a study.
And
So everybody
I
knows what it
sent
is.
all this to that study expecting I was gonna get a reply. And it wasn't until I spoke with someone at regulatory that they told me, you're not gonna get a reply because it's just a study. So they're taking all the information you're sending.
So
and
this,
put-
so
and
this,
put it
yeah,
in.
so this is how NEPA works. Even when you go to the public comment, because there will be a public comment, although you can submit written comments, you need to go to the public comment too. And you will have the Corps engineer representatives stand up there. They will be stiff-bodied. They will be emotional. Expect that. That is what their job is. They are not to, they cannot respond to you at that meeting. Their response will be their written response in the final EIS. That's where you will get their response for the project. So you have to follow this all the way through. You cannot just, comment at the draft portion of it. But there's a comment period that comes after the final, before the regular decision is made. You have to also participate in that final, in the comment portion of the final. Because once they get to the ROD, the record of decision, that's it. A decision has been made, unless you challenge the project in court, right? You can challenge the project in court. But I would highly suggest that you get involved. Set up a meeting. That was the other thing. I think I mentioned this to Ron. Set up a meeting with the Corps.
Yes.
Have the Corps come and make a presentation to you
That's right.
about the project so that you can ask questions. That project team should be able to come to the community and make a presentation.
We have a question
I
here.
was under the impression that they were gonna be here today.
I don't know if they were invited. Were they invited?
No.
No, we wanted to bring community together first, before we invite them, so that we are on a united, we can show a united front.
So you
The
can
Corps
set up
actually
that
has been to
meeting.
one of the meetings. What they did, just like you said, you turned it to a statute.
Yeah, that is their normal, that is the process. Expect that. And look, people, and I hope I'm not gonna offend anyone in here, people who are engineers and architects, they are not people. They're not. They're in those fields, folk, they're just not. So they're very stiff people. You occasionally have a person that's in, you know, the engineering field that is opposite of that. But that's most of their personality.
I can substantiate that. Once a truck got stuck in a tunnel, and they couldn't get it out, and they couldn't figure it out. And a 11-year-old girl told them, that's right, that's right, and they pulled it right out.
So while we're chatting, and because we're moving into chit-chatting now, which is wonderful, just the fellowship part, can we get a volunteer to bless the food?
Yeah, I want to close out with next steps.
Oh,
Next steps, right?
okay.
Or everything that we collectively kind of stated here today. My next steps is to work with Juan and Ramona on filling out all the details for the assessment. So that's the vulnerability assessment, that's completing the hazard assessment, which is flooding, right? There could be more hazards than that, but it could be flooding. We will do an analysis on brownfield, Superfund, and TR sites to see what's in the community.
There's an old sewage lagoon somewhere.
We need to figure that out.
These neighborhoods
If that thing gets flooded,
I don't know.
It runs right alongside of the Northeast Jackson soccer field.
so we need to
On
figure that
Westbrook
out.
Road.
A sewer lagoon?
What?
I just see it on the map. I don't know.
Is this a?
There's actually 3 of them back down on, behind the ball fields, and back in the day, people used to go back there and fish, but see, you can't get back, and they didn't know what they were doing, they was actually fishing from a lagoon.
Oh, my God.
See, it's just a whole lot of stuff.
You have to pass, right? I mean, it's right alongside of where you go to that,
Just behind us.
that problem.
Yeah.
That, when they laid those pipes, they ran right alongside of that and through that lagoon. It kind of made it a little bit better, but it's still there. So it's all right there in the same.
So those are my next steps, right? That I will work with Juan and Ramona on finishing up these, filling in the gaps for the assessments. And that includes the capacity assessment. So we need to understand kind of where the community is from a capacity standpoint. Those will be continuous conversations. Next step, yes, sir.
What kind of repercussions do you get from the government when you beat the government at this?
House always wins.
So I can tell you, sometimes your local government doesn't like when communities self-determine, and you get treated as, and I don't like using this term, but it communicates what I want to say. You get treated like the red-headed stepchild, right? When we was able to successfully mitigate, and we got substantial, you know, it's not a lot of money when you talk about 7 communities, $8 million. That's not a lot of money when you're talking about revitalizing a community that needs housing and economic development and all the other things that comes along with communities that are not only disadvantaged, but communities that are under-resourced. It's not a lot of money. It's a drop in the bucket on what they really need to improve their quality of life. But what you will have is that when you get those types of wins, it embarrasses your local government, and your local government then works to undermine the organizations that were part of those efforts. So they will come after your community association, they will try to undermine. If there are any grants that your community association will try to go after that the city has, they will be not as cooperative as they were with you. So just recognize the politics. That's why I put down as one weakness the community politics. That's going to be your that's going to be a weakness. It's going to be a threat too, because you're doing you in effect will be doing something that your city government should be doing, advocating for what is in the best interest of the community. And unfortunately, the community has to do this.
But we gotta do it.
But you got to do it. You got to do it. That's right. You got to do it. So understand, yes, you're going to create some enemies. You're messing with some deep pockets. That's it. So, and you're messing with their money.
Their money, that's all that counts.
So you're gonna get some, attempts in the media to disparage some of the leading folks. Know that when you step up to the table here, knowing that you are putting your privilege on the line too. So you have to be willing to compromise your privilege. Whatever that privilege is. People will drag your name through the mud. They will accuse you of stuff that you know, I think you all know how the politics work.
Oh, yeah.
So just expect for this to get nasty and dirty. Because you're messing with people's money.
Stop them.
And you could potentially stop it, right? So yes, people, you will anger some people. So next steps that I think everyone has agreed to, right? I think we have consensus around this, and you let me know if we don't have consensus so that we can work towards how we can agree to something. Photo voice. I think everyone has agreed that we can take pictures in our community about the challenges that we're having, so that we can begin to document those challenges, right, moving forward. Make sure that you accompany a story to that.
Yeah.
Send those pictures and those stories to mcupmedia@gmail.com. Right, so that is a repository right now for those pictures, and even if you have pictures now, right, on your phone, send them with a picture. I mean, send those pictures and send it with a story. It don't have to be no long, detailed story. It could be a sentence or two. Just so that we have some context.
I'm gonna be sending you more aerial photographs that I can't get to on my phone. And also, I'm gonna send you a link to the story that WLBT did on this.
Okay, cool.
So, and I've already sent that to the Pearl River FRM or whatever.
Okay, cool. Communication plan. I think MCUP has taken this on to share the communication plan with everyone who have signed up and left their email on the sign-up sheet. So if you haven't left your email on the sign-up sheet, make sure you do that. If you don't have an email, let Ramona and them know too, because they may be able to get it to you, a hard copy, to you via mail or something like that. You have to be, you know, our organization has to be flexible to how we get information to folks. Okay? So if you don't have an email, let them know so they can have an alternative way of sharing this communication plan to you. Ramona and them will also work on a Facebook page until your website is up and running. Right? That would be your main communication vehicle until the website happens. And then once the website is up and running, then the Facebook will complement what is on the website. But the website will be your main communication tool where you send people, where you are sharing your information. You are going to form a community advisory board. Right? Some of you may want to serve on that community advisory board. Do not be afraid. Right? Everybody brings value to this process. I don't care if you only know how to garden. We need your voice at the table. Because guess what? Gardening is a green infrastructure solution. So if you decide as a community we want more green infrastructure solutions in our community, gardening could be one of those solutions. So if you have a green thumb, every plant I get dies. So I don't have a green thumb. But there may be somebody in here, just like my mom. They can take a plant that looked like it's dead and bring it back to life. Right? So if you have that ability, we need your voice at the table because it is very important.
Can I show an example of a green infrastructure project that we did in
Sure.
Duck Hill?
Duck Hill. Wow.
What? You know Duck Hill?
I know a lot about Duck Hill.
I thought you do.
So while you're looking for that, Ramona, I will finish these two
Ms.
points
Ramona,
here.
you sent me those photos last week, I think, right?
I think I did.
You're going to identify a point person in your community, because I think it was stated that you wanted someone from your community to be a point person, to work with Mona, work with local organizers in the community on this project. So you're going to identify a point person from your community, and then lastly, We're gonna be ready to review this draft EIS when it's released. When it's released, so that we can properly do the analysis and we can respond appropriately to what's in there on what the community wants to see. So as you move forward, think about what it is that you want. As part of the NEPA process, you can enter a mitigation package. And a mitigation package could result into money that is given to the community based on what it is that you're asking for. But you can't just pull stuff out the sky and say, okay, there's X amount of homes that are in this floodplain, and X amount of homes are going to be impacted if this project moves forward. You can actually ask for money based on how many homes are going to be impacted.
Yep.
Right? You can add that. We did that. There were so many homes that was going to be impacted by that project, and we asked for over $1 million for just housing. We didn't come up with a number out the sky, right? We had to justify why we were asking for that. And you could do the same. That's why I was saying we need to know how many homes are going to be impacted. What are the income levels? All of this can be part of your mitigation package. Another mitigation idea that you all can say is you want green infrastructure as part of your community to deal with water. Right? You can ask for scholarships for your children, for your grandchildren, for the children that are part of this community. You can ask for scholarships for them to attend the local technical school, Jackson State, or whatever other universities that is part of the education system. You can ask for those types of things. But we won't know that until the community kind of come together and say, what is it that we want from this project? Right? What if you can't stop the project, although you oppose it? What if you can't stop the project? It's going to move forward because of the politics, because of the money. You submitted your comments, but what if they still going to move forward with the permitting process? Then the community has to move from opposition and fighting to how do we negotiate and begin to think about mitigation.
And pull them to the table.
Continue on.
You continue on. You have to be able, at some point, you can fight, but at some point you have to get to where is the win-win for everyone.
And the permitting process is so important because that's where we get our leverage as community. They can't move forward without permits.
That is correct.
Right? And that's where we have to push. And we're going to push, if nothing else, we need to push to show them that we're no longer going to be pushed over.
That's right.
Right? And we got to fight without fear or favor.
But I mean, even if you do get the mitigation package, you're going to always be fighting.
Right.
Right? Because they're gonna try to find ways to water down the mitigation, although they agree to it. You know, but you're gonna have to hold their feet to the fire that they live up to what the mitigation is, and how you hold their feet to the fire to the mitigation. Like Ramona say, the permit.
The permit.
If they don't live up to the obligations of what is outlined in the mitigation, you challenge the permit until they build it, until they complete it. Their permit is always under revisement.
That's right.
Always.
Are we able to use like public school? We actually have a school in our community. Can we use that as a source as well?
Talking about a resource in your community? Yes.
For this, because it floods as well.
Yes.
We have churches in our neighborhood that experience it.
We need to know where all those.
And that's what the asset mapping.
That's what asset mapping
is
will be.
going to.
There's also police.
And the reason, why we're holding, why we held here today is because we usually use New Jerusalem, the fellowship hall, but it was occupied, they have a wedding. And that's why we're meeting here today.
Let me give you an interesting statement.
Okay.
I was raised in this community. When I was a young man, walking around through the woods and hunting and everything, I never saw penny of this area flooded. And the Pearl River raised up and lowered down, but it never flooded. Now, downtown Jackson flooded because it came in through the sewer lines, and Deposit Guarantee Bank got west deep in water. But this area here never flooded. I've been out here when it's rained for a week and a half in a row, and still hunted and fished out here. I've seen old man Westbrook down there on his chute running in front of his house, where he had to get out of his house and come across that county canal there in a boat to get on the street to come to work, to go out to his plant. But I'm telling you, this place at one time never flooded.
I understand. So what's happening is the type of development that is happening. We have to be more, sensitive about our essential habitats. That's why I am not a proponent of filling in wetlands. I'm just not. I will oppose any project that proposes filling in wetlands, regardless of what the intent is. Because no matter what man does, no matter what he creates, he cannot recreate the natural system. He cannot. And when we fill wetlands, we're creating problems for ourselves, and that is the reason why we're seeing increased flooding in communities. We're also seeing increased flooding in communities because of the realities of climate change. Right? We have more frequent rain events. We are at time, right? Yeah, I hear you. Okay.
Before you leave, please take a look at your packets. There is a survey. Please fill it out. We want to make sure that. We want to make sure that that next time we do this, that will be a little bit better, and your feedback helps a lot. So where do you leave it? Please leave it up front. Don't forget there's also food for you, but we are going to be slowly pushing you out because we only have the space for so long. I'm going to send you an email, so if you didn't put your email on that list, please do. And there, we will continue that conversation about the Community Advisory Board. If you came up to me and told me anything about it, I'm going to forget. I'm toast right now, and I'm not taking any notes, so we'll have that conversation via email.
And I just want to give one example
of what green infrastructure looks like. This is a project that we did in Duck Hill. This corner is on the corner of Martin Luther King and State Street. It used to flood profusely. And when we put in the water diversion system, we built this space out, used the youth in the community. This was their first green space. Now it's a place where people come to socialize, sit around, talk, and everything like that. And that corner no longer floods. So there's things that we can do as a community. I want to thank everyone for coming out today. Your time is very valuable, and I know that. And I know there's a lot of information that has been shared. Last time on our next steps, we did get consensus that we would meet every other month. But given the fact that we're looking at the DEIS, we really don't know when it's going to come out. They say maybe 30 days, 60 days. But I know we do need to have some more communication around organizing and the actions that we're going to take. So having everyone's email is going to be very critical because our next meeting can be virtual. So can we get a volunteer to close us out with prayer to also bless the food?
Heavenly Father God, we thank you once again for this occasion, this meeting. We just pray that these families here represented, Father, will just go home and find everything in place. And we thank you for this food that you're going to give us and bless us with. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Amen, brother. Take a shot of goose and kill the heat.
Now tell me what you know about Duck Hill, Mississippi.